Well, looking at the top in the distance there, the first major climb of the day, 7,700 feet up, the Col de la Lombard, and coming up towards its summit in solitary splendour here, Stefan Schumacher of Germany, and then nobody's going to get to him. He broke away in the valley, he's got rid of his breakaway mates, and he's on his own, Paul.
He certainly is on his own, and how about that for an incredible backdrop? There'll be some sore legs in the main field, not enjoying the views that we're enjoying here this afternoon, but we're still on Italian soil. Very shortly we will tip over the top of the Alps here, Phil, and start to move down into France. And once we do move down into France, the riders will start to be quaking a little bit, because they'll realize they're lining themselves up for the highest road in Europe, the Col de la Bonette Restefond.
Julian Dean here, just unhitched for Garmin Chipotle. He was in that group, riding sensibly at the moment. One abandoned so far, the sprinter. Chavanel, Sebastian Chavanel, was left at the start of the climb. He climbed off. This is now, as the American flag flies, the South African flag, the French flag. Where's the Italian flag?
And
this
where's
is
the German flag?
Yes, this is the last few 100 metres of Italy for the Tour de France. Over the top is the border, and Stefan Schumacher is really inspired now as he dances to the top of the Col de Lombard. He gets the first points. Now it's the Col de la Bonette on the menu.
And that is what is in front of him now, the long descent down into the valley below. He's gone over the summit here of the climb at 72.5 kilometers into the race. He's got around about 20 kilometers of descent down into the town of Isola in the bottom before starting the climb de la Bonette. And on the way down, he will go through the ski resort of Isola 2000. This is Sebastian Rosler. He was one of the riders in that leading group of 5 just a little while ago, and he's about to get picked up by this group here, led by Jaroslav Popovic. He's done very well, I think, Phil, to survive the slopes of this climb. The important thing when you get dropped in a mountain stage like this is just to ride at your own pace, not to put yourself in the red zone, not to try and stay with the group that you're with, because if you pop on a climb like this, you're going to lose chunks of time.
Absolutely. Now watch this. It's not for the nervous now as we start to plunge off the mountain. This is said to be a very technical descent off the Lombard. We haven't seen it before. It's never been used in the Tour de France. The road obviously has been resurfaced. It's perfect weather conditions, no rain in the region at all. They've got to lock in hard around these hairpin bends though, and Stefan Schumacher, if he's a good descender, can continue to gain time.
Quite interesting, Phil, this part of the world that we're going through, and although we're looking at a very technical descent, I was interested to find out that the wolves in this area actually were reintroduced from the Italian side of the Alps, and they're extremely monitored. And whenever the cubs are born, they actually come in and they vaccinate the cubs against rabies.
That's fabulous.
And it's something that really is quite remarkable. The area around here actually used to be the hunting ground of the King of Italy, and that was as far back as 1859. But nowadays, it really is very much a national park, sharing this part of the Alps with the other part on the Italian side, and it's 350,000 acres of protected land.
Well, that is great news. And today, by the way, the President of France will arrive by helicopter at the 50 kilometers to go point and will step on board. He loves the Tour de France. He's been before, President Sarkozy, and he'll take the race right through to the finish. You might see him on the podium at the end. The bearded vulture, which is extremely rare, also flies in this area along with the royal eagle. I wonder if you'll see them. Our helicopters are pretty good at picking out these creatures.
This is the group of Damiano Cunego. This is the third group on the road. He's actually done a pretty good ride here, Phil, because he's actually almost about to make the junction with that group that was 22 riders in strength, and that is the group of Jaroslav Popovic. And as you can see, the team cars are just in front there, so Cunego has actually done a pretty good ride here with this group.
He's inspired because he's got the gap now. He's opened it up on the boys who are involved in their own Tour de France. The 6 riders who are split by less than a minute. They're down below fighting amongst themselves. It's the opportunist moment for a rider like Cunego to shake this race out and move himself up overall.
Now there's another move. We're going off the front of the group there, and it's a rider from Team Columbia. This is Marcus Burkhardt. Actually, he's coming back. He was in that group of 24 riders. He's slipping back down through the main field. Still big Stewie O'Grady on the front end of the main field. He's not thinking about anything else this afternoon. When you're in a situation like this, you don't think about yourself, you don't think about personal glory, you think about the collective of the team. And that's what O'Grady's doing this for this afternoon. And it must be pretty tough for Stuart O'Grady, really, because the man he's trying to defeat is a fellow Australian. But the man who wears the yellow jersey is his own teammate, and that is Frank Schleck. Popovic setting the tempo in the second group on the road.
8:47 the gap, Paul. I thought I heard the radio say Schumacher was, Voigtler was second over the summit. But we didn't see him go because our cameras really are totally committed right down the mountain here. A lot of damage being done, but again, we're treated to 2 Tours de France right now. The man out front who wants to win the stage, and the yellow jersey group, where 6 of them can win the race.
Jaroslav Popovic, he's just setting the tempo as if he had Cadel Evans on his wheel here this afternoon, because I think all of these riders, Phil, in this group, they know we are setting ourselves up for a massive battle on the Col de la Bonette Reste de Fond. There you can see Popovic leading that group of 22 riders over the summit, and not very far behind, at around about 30 to 40 seconds, is the group containing Damiano Cunego. This is Cunego's group here. Just to explain why we can't have a camera on every group in the main field in the race here this afternoon, we normally only have 3 motorbike cameras out on the course and the possibility of a 4th spare one. So when the race splits up, as it does in the mountains, it's pretty difficult to keep in with every facet of the race.
We need our helicopter desperately. Well, it's Luna Mervel who went over in second place, but again, we didn't see him. He was the only man other than Schumacher to survive of the front 5 runners. Schumacher on his own, he shed the 4. Mervel survived. Jaroslav Popovic will have crossed the mountain in 3rd place. That wasn't the worry of him, though. It's to be up front ready for Cadel Evans on the next climb.
Now's the part when you've got to get yourself into a rhythm. Schumacher now has gone through the technical part of the stop of this climb, Phil, and you can just see the rooftops here. Well, this is the ski resort of Isola 2000, and for this man now, he will get to the slightly easier and faster part of the course. He's getting himself into a rather strange aerodynamic position here, and what he's doing here, he's trying to make his body almost like a knife at the front to make himself and get himself into that ski-like tuck position.
So we're now on French roads in the Département d'Alpes-Maritimes, as the riders now are all making their way down into the valley below, and then they will climb out. They've just topped 7,700 feet. They will climb back to 9,200 feet. And
a little statistic for you there: the ascent of the Col de la Lombard took 58 minutes, 1 hour going uphill. Ascent.
Yeah. That's quite a long time, isn't it? And that's by these guys. I'll be out there for a day and a half, I suspect. 1 kilometre to go for the peloton, which contains the Maillot Jaune and the top 6 in the Tour de France for sure. Others too. Kim Kirken, by the way, of Team Columbia, he is in this group. He had really bad luck as he climbed up the Prato Novoso. If you remember, the Luxembourger led the Tour de France in the opening week. He broke a spoke, no team car near him. And yet when he got back on his bike, he lost less than a minute. So he's very confident today he can climb up with the front runners.
I'm certain that he can, and as I've always said, there's a big difference, Phil, between the Alpine climbs and the climbs in the Pyrenees, and some riders feel much more comfortable on the different gradients. Here, O'Grady looks very comfortable. He's riding in his own pain sphere there. He's just stamping out the pedals, because what he wants to do is set something up, because I'm sure that Team CSC are going to launch some kind of an attack, because even though they lead this race, they're in a rather strange position that as the leaders, they've got to still attack the race. They've still got to get more time if they want to beat Cadel Evans, or if they want to beat Denny Menchov before the final time trial on Saturday.
They're going to be pretty happy with the way they've kept this race together on this climb. Nobody's committed any suicidal raids. 78 kilometres to go. The next climb will be decisive. Once over the top of the next climb, by the way, you are on a fast ride to the finish. Yes, you've got 23 kilometres to go, but you're going to do it in less than 23 minutes, because it's straight downhill at 60 miles an hour, 100 kilometres an hour.
You'll be knocking out a good kilometre in around about the 55 to 58 seconds on the run down towards the finish.
Yeah.
And that's roughly what this man is doing here. He's gone through Isola 2000, and the little aerodynamic position he gets himself into, I hope you don't try that at home, because first of all, it's very dangerous, and secondly, it's not very easy to actually manoeuvre the bicycle when you go around corners. So you'll probably find yourself coming unstuck.
Yes, you can't get around the bends. Well, that's Schumacher on his way down. These boys have just gone over the summit, so they've started the descent as well now. There's a lot of contenders in this King of the Mountains competition up here.
Well,
called Chiron. There's the Danish flag, been the most Norwegian flag rather, most successful tour for Norway. 2 different riders winning 2 stages, and that's never happened before.
Well, just looking up here, Phil, this is a magnificent ski area during the winter. In fact, you can ski from 800 meters up to 2,600 meters. And the big advantage of skiing in this area, by the way, is the fact that it gets the best weather of all of the ski areas in France.
Well, that fine riding by Schumacher, he's continued to gain all the way up on the main group here, because they've just passed through 9 minutes now, and they are still climbing towards the top.
Also, a quick note there, it was nice to see that Julian Dean, the sprinter on Team Garmin-Chipotle, has got himself back into this group. So fingers crossed he'll survive a little bit longer, because for the sprinters, they hate days like this. All they think about is when they're going to get dropped and are they going to stay inside of the time limit. And it can be quite nerve-wracking sometimes. Peloton
has Brest at the top at 9 minutes 22 seconds at the moment. There's Julian Dean in the black and white. He'll be feeling pretty proud of his achievement right now. He's looking for a racing cape, because the riders know the descent is chilly. Believe it or not, up here it's only 5 degrees Celsius. Down in the valley it's 22.
Well, you're looking at just above freezing, maybe 40 degrees Fahrenheit, but it's even colder than that, Phil, with the chill factor of going downhill at around about 60 miles an hour.
So they'll be up with the newspapers and the racing capes and down on the bike.
So this is the descent now. The Tête de la Course, he's got a massive advantage. In fact, he's looking at 9.5 minutes. But I do think he's going to see a big chase come on the final climb of the day, the Col de la Bonette, Restefond. And I'm sure that there he will lose a certain amount of his advantage. It's a long descent, this, of 20 kilometers. He's gone down through the ski resort of Isola 2000. He then gets into the town of Isola, down in the bottom of the valley. And he doesn't have very long then, Phil, before he goes across a slight bridge and starts the climb up to Saint-Étienne-de-Tinée. And it's there at the town of Saint-Étienne-de-Tinée that the big climb of the day starts, the Col de la Bonette, Restefond. 2,800 meters. It's scary.
And it's only been climbed once in this direction, which is from the south to the north in the history of the Tour de France. Federico Badamontes was the champion at the top, but by the time he got down to the finish, which was a long way away in Briançon, believe it or not, it was won by a sprinter. He was caught by 5 men, I think, and the Belgian sprinter, Emile Darms, won the day, which is amazing. It won't happen today.
It won't happen today, because on that occasion, Phil...
Look at that, Paul. Isn't that lovely?
It is magnificent. It really is. That is real Tour de France-esque, if you like. It really is what the Tour de France, for me, is all about. These days are beautiful to watch, scary if you're a professional bike rider, and important if you want to win the event.
Yeah, that's about the longest we've seen the peloton since we left Brest. But that is a long, snaking line of riders, and I'm glad I'm not at the back of it.
Absolutely. And I'm glad it's not raining as well. One or two riders were concerned about the weather conditions, especially about after the wet day that we had on the road into Italy, when there was an incredible amount of crashes. And fortunately, nobody was really seriously hurt, although it did cost his position in the main field of Oscar Pereiro. O'Grady taking it carefully down here. He's a good bike handler, Stuart O'Grady, and he will now know that it's going to be quite important. It's only the first 4 or 5 kilometers, Phil, until we get into the town of Isola 2000, that the road is quite as technical as this. And once we get down out of that town, it becomes a much faster descent.
Lee Foster's number 5 showing his number. They're actually not allowed to cover their number up in the Tour de France, although quite often we see it in the wet weather. Incidentally, Paul, Heinrich Hausler, the German rider in the race, but of course he hails from Inverell in New South Wales, not too far away, I suppose, northwest of Sydney, I think it would be, yes. And he's left the town of Inverell today, heading to the finish of the Tour de France on the Champs-Élysées to see his son finish the event. He's taking with him 2 ladies' football teams, because apparently Dad Hausler trains the girls at football.
So that'll be quite a large part of the plane taken up, because that'll be 22, I suppose, if he's bringing 2 football teams. There is Isola 2000. You can see just down in the bottom there. And as I said earlier, in this part of the world, you can ski between 1,800 meters and up to 2,600 meters. The highest point and the highest skiing place is Cime de Sistron, and that's just over to the right-hand side there. And apparently, on a good clear day, if you get to the summit of these climbs around here, you can actually see the Mediterranean. O'Grady, you see how important O'Grady, little hand out there, take it easy. There's a dodgy corner coming up here, mate. And there O'Grady just making that signal to the teammate behind. He was halfway through getting his sandwich down his neck at the time. And anyway, everybody is nice and safely around there. They won't take too many risks on this descent. And look at that, that really is a fantastic shot. But it's still a fairly large main field. They've got over there pretty much in a compact sense. And I have a feeling, and my gut feeling is, that we're going to see a major battle happen on the slopes of the Col de la Bonette Brest. It's really important to eat on a stage like this, and it's not always easy to eat because, of course, you can't eat when you're on your way up a mountain. It's just impossible because you're trying to get your air down you as much as possible. So you have to try and remember to eat on the descents, and that's what Stuart O'Grady was doing there. This is the back of that group, led by Stuart O'Grady. And this is the former French national champion, Florent Bras, in a little bit of difficulty. And if you cast your mind back to a couple of days ago, he was in a breakaway and he wasn't actually able to stay in contact with the group on the descent. Now, you may well find that rather strange to believe that riders can't stay in contact. Well, some guys, they just don't have the nerve to go downhill fast. So, back with Stefan Schumacher. 9.5 minutes advantage. Schumacher climbed at the Col there in 58 minutes and 12 seconds, and the yellow jersey group climbed it in 1 hour and 3 minutes. However, the difference between the two may well change, I think, once we get to the next climb of the day. 43 miles to go, 69 kilometers.
Actually, he's still accelerating. He's descending extremely well. He's pushing his lead up to 10 minutes, you know. There is an outside chance he might ride this stage on his own to the finish. Paul thinks he's going to win, and he doesn't usually predict any of these front guys ever win anything, but
well, it's
he might be right, Paul.
It's easier on a mountain stage, believe it or not, to survive as a low man, especially if you've got good form and you can climb well, because he won't lose any time at all, Phil, on the descent part of this course. He's going downhill as fast as they are, and in fact, he doesn't use an awful lot of energy. If he had 40 kilometers of flatland, I would possibly vote against him winning the stage, but it's basically downhill into Isola, around about 10 or 15 kilometers along a bit of a valley road, and then it's straight back uphill again. Once he summits the Col de la Bonette Rest de Fond, it's 20 kilometers straight down to the finish line.
Well, in all the confusion, we thought Voigtler was in there somewhere on the way up. We haven't seen hide nor hair of him. Schumacher went over the top of the Col de Lombard first. Lemavelle was second. Voigtler then went over in third place. We don't know where he is, as always, but he's somewhere up there. Then it was Jaroslav Popovic led over the chase group of some 22 riders. The peloton went over 9 minutes 22 seconds back, and currently they're even further down on that, about 9:35 now, and this is the peloton, and all looking after Frank Schleck. What we haven't seen today, Paul, is any of the other contenders near Schleck. They've just left him up there by himself.
Well, I've been looking up and down the main field to see where Cadel Evans has been riding on a day like this, Phil, because he's been, for the last 10 days or so, since we came out of the Pyrenees, always up at the front end of the main field. But he's been easy to spot because of the yellow jersey on his shoulders. Now that he's gone back to his Silence Lotto jersey, you're having a hard time trying to pick him out in the main pack, but he's certainly not riding in the wheel of Schleck.
No, interesting.
So there's 26 riders in that second group on the road, and it's still rather a large group, and it's been swelled recently by the return into that group of Damiano Cunego. So the race situation currently, Schumacher 2 minutes ahead of Christophe Lemavelle, and a little bit further back Thomas Voigtler, although I wouldn't be surprised to see Voigtler getting picked up quite soon, because Voigtler is probably only 30 seconds ahead of the Popovic group. This is Fabian Cancellara now, a big man from Team CSC, 2 times world time trial champion, current world time trial champion, and a big hope to get the gold medal in the individual time trial, of course, at the upcoming Olympic Games in Beijing, which a lot of these riders will travel to within 10 days of the end of the Tour de France. A lot of Tour de France road racing competitors in the Tour de France this year. Big long line now as they line themselves up. It's going to be psychological. We're looking at an average speed here on the descent of around about 37 miles an hour, and that's for these riders from Team CSC. They have assumed complete and utter control of this race in the last 48 hours since they went on the attack in an unbelievable fashion on the summit ride up to Prato Nervoso. Rarely have I seen so many attacks come up against the yellow jersey, and I'm kind of expecting a similar scenario today once we get to the slopes of the Col de la Bonette Restafond. I think we've got a situation, as you said, Phil, that there are two races going on here. You've got a race for the glory of the stage, which is what Stefan Schumacher is chasing. And in this group here, what you're looking at is a race for the battle of supremacy to win the bike race after the full 3 weeks.
Well, Cadel Evans has said Team CSC deserved the race lead, and there, talk of the devil, Cadel was on the right taking what looked like a banana, but I doubt it, not very indigestible, digestible, a banana, but he was right there, so he has moved up on the way down. He is a good descender, by the way, Cadel Evans. 9:35, this is the leader, Stefan Schumacher. By the way, behind Popovic, who was fourth, Sifsu came over in fifth, Jens Voigt in sixth, Cyril Dessel in seventh, John Lee Augustin, youngest man in the race from South Africa, went over the top in eighth position. That's a great ride. Sebastian Rosler in ninth, and Gutierrez, Jose Ivan Gutierrez, was 10th. That's the top 10. We are still on the way down and are likely to remain on the way down for a while.
Yes, Phil, I'd just like to take umbrage a little bit on your comment about the banana. Bananas are actually very good for you in a professional bike race, especially
all the time
if you eat them at the right time during their ripening process, because if you eat them when they're slightly overripe, they are absorbed, and the sugar in the banana is absorbed over a longer period of time to sustain the effort that you put in. And I know that because living in Uganda, where I do, Uganda is one of the largest producers of bananas in the world.
So it's a commercial.
And we don't export any.
You eat them all, you greedy lot. Actually, I ate so many bananas as a cyclist, I just can't stand the sight of them anymore since I stopped cycling.
I love bananas. Bananas are good for you.
4:49 to the second group on the road, which we don't know if there's still a couple of loners out there like Lumervel and Voigtler, or whether they've been picked up by the Popovic group on the way down, which we're looking at here, the yellow. I think we're back with the Popovic group right now. Whatever happened to Damiano Cunego's group?
Well, Damiano Cunego actually caught up with the Jaroslav Popovic group on the first couple of kilometres of the descent, so they swelled that level. The number of riders in that group has swelled up to 31
it's just happened
riders.
Coming down the mountain?
Yeah, just over the summit.
Right.
So there's 31 riders in that group. I have a feeling that Thomas Voigtler has been pulled back into that group as well, because at the summit he was only about 30 seconds ahead of the Jaroslav Popovic group. So the situation we're looking at now is two lone riders off the front. Stefan Schumacher chased by Lumervel.
So just thought for a moment he overshot that then.
A little bit of picture freezing up. That's the problems with the digital link here, because with the digital link you've either got pictures or you haven't. And that's the new technology that's being adopted nowadays. In the old days, when we used a lot of analog links from the motorbikes up to the helicopter and down to the finish line, when we were having bad times getting pictures through, you always got pictures coming through, but they may well have been slightly interrupted. But with the digital signal, if you lose or break the signal, the picture disappears completely until it restabilizes. Anyway, that's enough of the technical advice and the technical side of the covering of professional bike racing. Here we're now in the town of Isola, so he's got himself to the bottom of the climb, and the Isola is at 63 kilometers to go. Now that's a bit of a problem there. Now that was one of the riders from CSC who had a bit of a problem going around the corner there, and I think O'Grady now will sit up and wait. Quick measure, everything okay? What's the problem? So that's a little bit of the risk that happens when you're going downhill like that. Just trying to see who it is. I think it was probably Fabian Cancellara. It was Cancellara, and he doesn't seem to be any worse for wear for that, but he'll very quickly be back in the main field. O'Grady will turn off the pressure on the front end of the main field and allow his teammate to rejoin. In fact, he's taking some pretty bad lines around that corner now. That often happens for the first couple of corners. After you've made an error like that, you lose your bottle of fraction and you start to take the wrong lines into it. But for this man here, he is a great and tough competitor. So I think quite shortly he'll be back in that group. Isola is actually the feeding station as well for these riders. The village itself is only 870 meters in altitude. And for the moment we're waiting to see whether or not Stefan Schumacher will go through here. There's a quick chat with the team management there. Nearly all of these riders using two-way radios, which is why in the early part of the race, for the first 30 to 40 kilometers, the race radio doesn't give out the numbers of the breakaway, because it's the Tour de France's own little attempt to battle the use of two-way radios. There's a big discussion going on at the moment as to whether or not two-way radios should be allowed or should be banned, because a lot of people believe that they falsify the race and take the too many decisions away from the professional athletes and leave the decisions of tactics and the road up to the management. So number 13, the yellow number, indicates that his team is the leading team in the Tour de France so far. There's O'Grady just sitting up on the front end. He won't keep the pressure on because he'll be waiting for his teammate to rejoin the race and of course to come straight back up to the front end of it. It's not a huge group. There's obviously a number of the teams of the sprinters, a number of the sprinters have been left behind on a day like this, but none of that concerns this man, the lone leader from Germany, Schumacher.
Just watching here over the shoulder of the man who's still holding it all of the ace cards in the pack of Stefan Schumacher, 10-13. He's continued to gain on this descent. I'm just wondering why Fabian Cancellara didn't look too happy on the back of that group going downhill.
Well, he almost missed a corner on one of the descents, and I think that shook him a fraction and he was left behind. He's trying to get himself back into the race, and after that I think he's going to ride himself up to the front end of the main field. Stuart O'Grady, who was on the front, has actually turned off the pacemaking a fraction to allow Cancellara to get back into the pack.
Well, the day is flying by, as are the riders. 61.2 kilometers only to the finish today. Schumacher has wasted no time in spearheading the race into the Alps and back into France. CSC, O'Grady is a very good descender. One of the best bike handlers in the world. This man is a great track cyclist as well.
One of the reasons coming through is, in fact, that Fabian Cancellara had to stop for a mechanical at the side of the road, but he's got himself quite quickly in. But also, race radio Phil is crackling through to say that Jaroslav Popovic had a slight accident on the descent as well, but he's back up and on his bike.
Oh, well, our cameras can't show us everything. That's the first we knew about that. Maybe if we get with that chase group, we'll see where he is in it. But that's not good news for Cadel Evans. He's back on his bike. He's still in front. That's fine. There's the peloton. Braking hard for yet another hairpin bend. We're running down, don't forget, to the valley below. And there is Henrik Hushovd, whose dad's on the way from Australia to see him today, as he's flying towards Paris, where he expects Henrik to arrive on Sunday with the other riders in the Tour de France.
Yeah, just out of interest, by the way, Henrik Hushovd himself is a very good sprinter. He was brought into the Tour de France team for Team Gerolsteiner right at the last minute as a replacement. Initially, when he heard that he hadn't been retained for the team, he was rather upset, as he felt he deserved his place. And just before the start of the Tour, he won a stage of the Bayern-Munich Rundfahrt. But he's a rider who I reckon is a good sprinter. He's got an excellent ability to finish off races, but here of course he has to lead out the sprints for guys like Robert Forster, who is the sprinter on his team. So Grady just backing off a fraction now, waiting for Fabian Cancellara to make his way back up to the front end of the main field. And then I think once we do get to the next part of the race, and once we do get up onto the slopes of the Col de la Bonette, we'll start to see Team CSC's tactics unfold. They're going to toughen up the race, I'm absolutely certain, and they'll try and decimate the peloton and see which of the main contenders they can put into difficulty. And then we should see which of the CSC trio is going to be the best climber of the day.
It's going to be good, and Christian van der Velde, the American rider, is very happy with the way this race is going, and everybody asking who is he. Well, he's been around a long time, Christian van der Velde, on all of the big teams, including CSC, including Lance Armstrong's team. He's never been a team leader before, and his new team, Garmin Chipotle, he said today he's watching everybody, he knows who descends well, and you know, he's very confident he can do something.
Well, I'm very confident he can do something. He's been around for a long time. He was a teammate, as you said, Phil, of Lance Armstrong, but he also has a very good track background. He was one of the reserves for the American Team Pursuit squad at the Olympic Games going back as far as 1996. I think he turned professional in 1998, and he's been a solid professional ever since then.
Pretty sure his parents have now arrived from Chicago. I think they came in over the rest day to watch him through to the finish in Paris.
Yeah, his dad, John van der Velde, actually raced for the United States in the Olympic Games in the Pursuit in 1968 and 1972. So you could say it's a family dynasty.
Well, it'd be rather nice if all comes well for him at We've still got Stefan Schumacher, the man who's rewriting the story of the day here, breaking away on his own on the climb. The yellow jersey just escaped. What a brilliant bridge that was. 10 minutes and just about 2 seconds.
Phenomenal ride by Frank Schleck, and I think he'd probably get disqualified, Phil, because he's not wearing a helmet.
Good point. Good point. Yes, well, I wonder if that guy will still be alongside Schumacher in about 5 or 6 kilometres. I doubt it somehow.
Well, the chasers behind that group of 31 riders are still 5 minutes behind Stefan Schumacher, and still caught in no man's land is Christophe Lemervel. However, Schumacher at the moment, Phil, has actually managed to pull himself up to around about a top 20 position if he was to conserve the majority of his advantage here. There's Big George. Hincapie quite happy to be in a group like this in the mountains. There's Thomas Vogler, so he has been brought in to this group of around about 31 riders.
Bram Tankink setting the pace. But about 10 kilometres for the... Oh, there's been a crash here.
That's a case D'Epagna
and
rider
that is
went
a
down.
Nasty fall. Now, he's not sure which one it is. His tyre has come off at the front there. Now, this is what happens when the rim gets hot, and this is where it was here. Oh, no, one rider saw him go and managed to correct it. His eye went that way. Well, it's one of the Case d'Epagna riders, and I think it is Nicolas Porte. No, it's Arnaud Coyot. So it wasn't in the breakaway, it was in the peloton.
He seems to be okay. They just says get hold of the bike, and it looks... I don't think that tyre popped off and caused the accident, because of the way he was going pretty straight at the time when that happened, and it could well have come off after the incident. Well, it just goes to show there's excitement every kilometre of the way in a race like this. This is an important day for everybody. And Coyot went down pretty hard there. But he wasn't one of the riders in that leading group of 31 men. Well, the group containing Damiano Cunego is at around about 6 minutes now, as we just saw this crash just a few moments ago, and I'm really not sure how that happened. It could have been that the tyre popped off. Now, you see most of these tyres, they're actually stuck onto the rim with a kind of glue. And the reason for that is so that they can be pumped up to a higher pressure. They pump the tyres up to around about 120 psi on a day like this.
25.5 kilometres, it should have said on that sign, to the summit of the mountain. So he's on the climb now of the Col de la Bonette.
Yeah, this is the little town of Saint-Étienne-de-Tinée, and this is basically where the climb starts. The ascent of the Cime de la Bonette Restefond. And actually,
this is the high spot of the...
In that valley village there was a massive fire in 1929 which almost destroyed the whole of the village, and every commune in France, every municipality in France got together to aid the rebuilding of this little village. And in fact, now one of the main streets right through the middle is known as the Street of the Communes of France. Sorry about the little bit of picture breakup that we get now and again, but we're bringing live pictures from the roads of the Tour de France, and every now and again there's that little bit of interference. Team Liquigas now coming to the front. They're all now getting a little bit nervous, because they realize just around the corner is the highest spot of the Tour de France this year, the Col de la Bonette Restefond.
11:59, Paul, so he's gone on to the climb with just 12 minutes lead over the peloton. They'll begin their infighting, and they won't worry about where he is. We could see a great climb up here now. This is the chase group who... Oh, no, this is the main field here, who are trying to whip it along here. 48.4 kilometres, just 30 miles from the finish, absolutely nothing at all. The day has flown by.
The day has flown by, and just to put it into a little bit of perspective, if you cast your mind back 48 hours, and the breakaway that was clear on the road to Prato Nervoso, there at one stage had a quarter of an hour's advantage before the start of the climb. Admittedly, it came down to around about 12 minutes at the bottom of the climb, but those four leaders lost themselves 8 minutes in 11 kilometres of climbing. Now we're looking here at this group here with the heads of state, the overall leaders, with a deficit of 12 minutes. Well, they could wipe away a huge portion of that on the 25.5 kilometre climb of the Col de la Bonette.
And that is a bigger than expected bunch here racing across the valley to the big climb. We thought that they would have dropped a lot of riders there, but obviously they didn't. We have heard talking riders are being dropped. Danny Pate has been dropped now by that chasing group of 30. So too Samuel Dumoulin, the rider that was up originally in the 5-man escape. He's now been dropped as well. And so it's now down to 28 riders chasing Schumacher at 4 minutes and 19 seconds.
Well, I wonder what happened to Danny Pate there, because he just seemed to stop. And on a day like this, one of the most important things to do, Phil, is to keep eating, keep drinking, and keep your levels topped up all of the time. Team manager coming up alongside his man here, Stefan Schumacher. Schumacher now has just got to get himself into the zone. He's got to find a rhythm, which is just a little bit uncomfortable, but keep the pressure on. He probably on the slopes of this climb will be producing around about 400 watts. And there's his team manager there, Michael Holzer. He's a great man there. He's in fact in charge of the little move to create a new Pro Tour, if you like, moving away from the international governing bodies Pro Tour, which seems to really have crumbled in the last 2 months.
He doesn't like to be referred to as being in charge of. He's just the coordinator. He's anxious to distance himself from any anarchy, I think. But it's certainly there are big changes afoot in the world of cycling right now. 11:58, 47.5 kilometers to go. But unfortunately, the next 25 are just about the steepest roads we have encountered in this year's Tour de France. And all together at the same time, unfortunately.
Well, very shortly, I think we're going to see a bit of an explosion in this group as well, because on the front we've got two teams have been the ones really responsible for doing most of the pacemaking, and that's been the team of Lampre and also the team of Cofidis. And the reason for that is they go through the banner there. There was the banner indicating 25.5 kilometers to go to the summit. On the summit of the Col de la Bonette Restefan, the temperature is as low as 4 degrees Celsius, although fortunately the sun is out and it's not a major problem for the riders, but the chill factor on the way down is going to make it very cold indeed. Lampre all over the front of this. We haven't got to the steep part of the climb yet, but once we do, I think we'll see that group starting to split. That's the peloton, and that's the group containing all of the contenders. Cadel Evans is in this group, Denny Menchoff, the two Schleck brothers, Andy and Frank, Carlos Sastre, and of course the American Christian van der Velde. I can't think back to a time in the Tour de France when there's been a situation, as we've gone into stage 16, where the top 6 riders are separated by only 49 seconds. And still, O'Grady stamping out the pressure on the front end of this group.
As we look amongst the trees here, the snows will start to fall here towards the end of October, early November, and it'll stay till March, April, or even May. The riders, in fact, Paul, wanted to come and have a look at this col as early as late as last June, and they couldn't. It was still snow blocked.
Well, in fact, the Restefan was just about open at the very end of June when Cadel Evans came to have a look at this climb, and the last part of the climb he had to go up by car. He got to the top and said, I want to ride down this descent because I've got to know what it's like. So he got the bike off the top of the car at the summit and rode down the descent just to get a feeling of how dangerous the descent was. He felt that the descent on a stage like today could possibly be more important than the ascent, and I think he might be right.
Well, it's all going to be revealed now. This is the day that all that preparation was intended for. Stuart O'Grady has been superb, and we've seen him get stronger every day of this Tour de France. Now he's a key element in Team CSC's success so far. He's been on the front all the way up to Lombard. He's going to go as well as he can for as long as he can on the Restefan, and then get home as best he can, because they'll leave him for sure. But there, the peloton at the front set the pace. The Maillot Jaune is keeping close up there. So too now is Cadel Evans. Haven't seen too much of Dennis Menchoff, but he is there for sure. So too is Christian van der Velde.
They're all there. They're all just waiting for the moment to make the move. A quick resume of how the race looks at the moment, Phil. Stefan Schumacher is still leading, and in a very short time I would expect to see Christophe Lemouvel brought back into the fold of that second group of riders, 28 riders on the fold, because they are now at around about 3 minutes and 40 seconds from the lone leader. There's Mouvel, and just around the corner, in fact, is the rest of that group of 28 riders with Popovic, Jens Voigt and the rest.
So then it's Schumacher, the bunch, and the bunch. That's the way it goes. Christophe Lemouvel, the last survivor of that original breakaway of 5. Schumacher is the final survivor, of course, up front. This one is about to be picked up here. He's ridden very well today, Christophe Lemouvel, inspired by the riding perhaps of Simon Gerrans 2 days ago. They're on the same team. And we've done 111 kilometers today, and we've got 45.9 to go. 12 minutes, so he's still pulling away up front on the peloton.
Yeah, I have a feeling, Phil, that, and I haven't seen it happen, but I was expecting the President of France, Nicolas Sarkozy, to join the race at the town of Saint-Étienne-de-Tinée. And he wanted to be in the race convoy as it went over the Col de la Bonette at Restefond. So maybe he's in the car, and maybe he's going to witness a great battle today as well.
Well, he loves the Tour de France. It's not his first visit to this race.
So there's Christophe Lemaivel. He's now been brought back into the fold by this group, and now we're starting the early slopes now. This 25.5 kilometer climb all the way up to the summit of Europe, the high spot, the ceiling of Europe, if you like, at 2,800 meters, 9,300 feet in altitude. As we can see, the accelerations now starting. There's big George Hincapie just a little bit further back. He'll be quite happy, I think, with his ride through the mountains here this afternoon, and alongside him he'll have the youngster on Team Columbia, Constantin Sitsu. Well, still, O'Grady's doing an amazing amount of work here, Phil. It really is. You have to understand the sacrifice of a rider of the talent of Stuart O'Grady to understand what it's like being a team helper on a team like Team CSC, the best team in the world, the best team in the bike race, and O'Grady hasn't once since the start of this tour thought about his own personal glory. It's all about the group, all about the collective, all about his team.
And he's riding at a tempo that quite clearly is not top tempo for the race, because there wouldn't be so many riders here. Thor Hushovd is still at the back of this group, which is every pedal counts, and if he can keep on there for another kilometre, all well and good. Makes his ride home a little less painful. So this is not a cracking pace in the main field for sure yet, but O'Grady's doing his job well. Into the town of Saint-Marc.
Saint-Marc, that's just around about 1.5 kilometres before the Saint-Étienne-de-Tinée, and it's still O'Grady. And I'm sure that once we get to the first few kilometres of the climb, Phil, Stuart O'Grady will swing over and allow one of his teammates to come to the front and adopt the pacemaking. Will it be Nicky Sorensen or Fabian Cancellara? At the front here, these are the chasers, and they're still looking to pull themselves back to the lone leader on the road now, Stefan Schumacher of Germany. Schumacher still holding on to 340. And the way these guys are riding, the way they are so dedicated to the job in hand here this afternoon, I wouldn't be surprised, actually. Although I was very convinced earlier that Stefan Schumacher was going to win, I wouldn't be surprised if somebody from this group, Phil, doesn't have the strength to go out and join him.
Oh, you can't change your mind now. That wouldn't be fair.
That's the important thing about a race like the Tour de France. It's a fluid event. Circumstances and race conditions change all of the time. So my opinion's going to too.
Okay, then. Well, I like the way that, in fact, Koenigo has taken this race, because he's had a poor tour, and now he's trying to put matters to rights and give himself a reasonable standing in the overall classification. He's in this group, and at the moment they're all riding together as friends, but as it gets steeper, we'll see that change.
Chavanel was on the front of that group there too for Team Cofidis, and he is dedicating himself and riding himself for David Moncoutier, and of course for Maxime Montfort, who's looking to try and get himself the white jersey competition. Schumacher now just has to keep riding at that pace and hope that he doesn't lose too much of his advantage. He's still got a massive advantage over the yellow jersey group, but his advantage over that chasing group behind him is starting to come down. So there is the small town of Saint-Étienne-de-Tinée. It was in the 19th century, it was a huge area for the manufacturing of cloth. And nowadays that's kind of disappeared away, as it has in most of the European countries, when clothing and the manufacture of clothing has moved to different parts of the world. This is the main field now, just coming into the town of Saint-Étienne-de-Tinée, and this is the start of the climb for them as well. So as they go through this big bridge over the road, they're welcoming them to the Alpes Maritimes. It will always give them the start of the climb as well, 25.5 kilometers. So this is the front end of the main field now, the back end of the main field, I should say. They've just come through 25.5 kilometers to go to the summit of the Col de la Bonette Restefond, and that's where the riders are heading to, the high spot of the Tour de France 2008. And not surprisingly enough to me, it's Team CSC have come to the front end of the main field, because now they are going to want to make this a very tough race. O'Grady on the front, helped there by Nicky Sorensen, champion of Denmark. Also helped over to the right and the left-hand side there by Fabian Cancellara, Vladimir Gustov, Andy Schleck, Frank Schleck, Carlos Sastre. These men now want to toughen the race up, and the first casualty is the big sprinter, Thor Hushovd, number 81. The race situation as it stands at the moment is we've still got one lone leader off the front end of the main field, Stefan Schumacher of Germany. Then behind him, a group of 29 riders at around about 3.5 minutes. And in that group are mainly the team helpers of most of the leaders of the bike race this afternoon.
Well, looking here now, this is the way on the climb, Paul. Life has got a little unpleasant for everybody, and so very, very quickly, hasn't it?
Jeremy Roy going backwards. I just noticed a few moments ago Thor Hushovd disappearing from the back end of the main field. That's because they're starting to turn the pressure up in each of the groups in the race here this afternoon, Phil. Certainly in the second group on the road with Damiano Cunego, they're whipping it up. Pipo Pozzato here, and I have a feeling that Pipo Pozzato may well be doing this because the second place rider in the white jersey competition is up the road, Maxime Montfort. Pipo Pozzato's teammate Vincenzo Nibali leads that competition, and the young Italian has said quite obviously, Phil, he wants to win that race.
Sure, and his teammates in second place. All of the leaders, though, the top 6 overall, still all together as Pozzato heads up the pace here, which means they're going to watch one another now and wait for the moves. But Pozzato lifting that pace a little bit higher than I think O'Grady could manage has really hurt the back of the field. Just take a look down the back of the picture there. The riders now are unhitching, and Pozzato doing what O'Grady was doing for the yellow boy. He's doing this for his teammates as well.
Well, look at the number of riders who've come out of the back. Big Johan van Sommeren popped. Number 5 there, Leif Hoster, popped. He's a teammate of Cadel Evans. These riders now are just going to have to ride at their own pace on the slopes of this climb and hope to survive, and hope that their team leaders don't have any mechanical problems, because one by one, Phil, all of the big contenders, all of the challengers are losing their teammates.
Yes, and Juan Jose Oroz has gone there too, the rider we saw earlier nipping through the peloton. I think Oscar Freire did very well. He was in the early break. He finished over the top of the last climb with the peloton. Now he's looking to form a group here and wants them all to come back together and just ride at their own pace.
Well, he's quite happy, you know. He's got his job done over the flat part of the course. He's one of the best sprinters in the race, and that's why he wears the green jersey there as leader of the points classification. And this is, looks like Nicky Sorensen was coming back there. His job done at the front end of the main field, and that would indicate that they really are putting the hammer down in the main field. Phil, we're on the first kilometres of this climb, and look at the long line of this bunch. The pressure is on, the race is on in earnest.
Also, we saw back there Chris Froome and Robbie Hunter, the 2 Barlow World riders, also have decided to go home in the autobus today. Up to the fair, all done by this one man who's setting a tempo which he won't hold all the way up. But look at the gap closing down, 3:16. The leaders are getting closer to this rider as well at the same time, and the bunch has come down by about 45 seconds too. So Schumacher just not panicking. He knows they're going to chase. He's just got to hang on in there. He's got 19 kilometers of ascension to go.
Well, I'll tell you one thing, Liquigas are riding very hard on the front end of the main field. First of all, Phil, because they're thinking about their man who wears the white jersey, leader's jersey, and that is Vincenzo Nibali. And, of course, they could well be thinking about moving up their man Roman Kreuziger a little way in the overall classification, because he's only 7 minutes and 15 seconds down, and he probably feels that he is worth a top 5 or 10 finish in the Tour de France this year. So there's a lot of things going on in that group behind, and it's good to see Pipo Pozzato adding a little bit of help there to the front end of the main field and Team CSC. But when the race starts in earnest, I think CSC are going to take over the stranglehold.
Well, we're going to find out now. 42 kilometers to go, 11 minutes. That gap has come down quite quickly since Pozzato got hold of the throat of the chase peloton. 10:57, another 3 seconds knocked off. We're not even 3/4 of the way up yet, rather not at 1/4 of the way up the climb. We're looking here at Fabian Cancellara. This will be his. Off goes the drinking bottle. Every little weight saving counts. He will lift the pace until he can't do it anymore, then he'll disappear. That's the tactic. And Team CSC have handled 88% of the workload. Liquigas 12% at the front of the peloton.
You might notice that Stuart O'Grady has disappeared from that group, Phil, and that's not surprising when you think how much work he did at the front end of the main field, and that's a wave goodbye for Jose Luis Arrieta in that long breakaway 48 hours ago.
Jose Luis Arrieta, remember, in the breakaway yesterday, 2 days ago rather, 4 of them were clear. This is Cancellara, the big man. He's the world time trial champion. He just stamps on those pedals. He won the prologue time trial when the Tour de France started in London last year, and that was watched by an enormous number of people. He also won a stage of the race in Compiègne last year when he had the yellow jersey on.
Pippo Pozzato from the front to the back. Well, he did as much as he could to raise the tempo in that group there, to make it a little bit tougher, and now he's just going to sit up and he will survive. That is the job of a team helper on a day like this, and he in fact is normally on the flatter stages one of the team leaders, but today he's thinking about a different game. He's thinking about moving his men up in the overall classification. He's thinking about Nibali, he's thinking about Kreuziger. This man is thinking about yellow.
But he looks so confident, and his team are all around him. You know, his tactics are the same. There is Bernard Coe, the new leader in the King of the Mountains. He said he didn't have anything left in his body when he finished at the top of Prato Novoso. He just fell to the floor. But he's got big ambitions, and he sits, don't forget, overall in this race right now in second place. He's the teammate of this rider who is the leader on the road today.
Schumacher, Phil, has all of a sudden lost 1.5 minutes.
He doesn't look so good now, does he?
Over the front end of the main field. And he's also only 3 minutes ahead of the group with Popovic, Arvidsson, Voigt, and all of the other riders in that group of 28 riders.
Well, there they are,
in the middle.
And look at the riders dropping off it. There's 3 riders unhitching there from that group of 28. And I have to say that particular shot of Schumacher, I would say hitting the wall is not very far away. He didn't look good.
No, he doesn't. There's a lot of pressure on. This is the poursuivant, the chasers, the second group on the road. This is the group of Damiano Cunego. A lot of work being done by Lampre, and just swinging around here to check the waterfall there. I would think that would be a much more refreshing place to be than actually on the road in the main field today.
There's a split again. 2 Bala World Riders, looks like, sitting at the back there. So I wonder if we've lost the 2 Bala World Riders from that group at the moment. So this is the tempo being done by Fabian Cancellara. Jens Voigt they have up in the next group waiting for the arrival. This here at the back of the group is the end of Thomas Lockfitz, who was the young rider on Team Columbia. They're all dropping out of the group here. It's a long, vicious, unrelenting climb, this. It really is, and it gets steeper and steeper, and they grind on for such a long way. All of a sudden, that big bunch, there's only about the front half, will be together shortly.
Yes, but the hardest thing about this climb for many of these riders, Phil, is once they start to climb up above the 2,000-meter altitude point, they'll be getting into some real rarefied air, and it's going to be very difficult to produce a long and sustained effort. That's why on the foot of the climb, where it's just that little bit flatter, a lot of the work for Team CSC has been done by riders like Stuart O'Grady. He's now disappeared. It was done by Fabian Cancellara. He has now disappeared. They're leaving it up now to Vladimir Gustov on the front, and in second position, Andy Schleck. He will absolutely ring himself inside out for his brother Frank, while you can see number 13, job done. He's slipping to the back of the race.
And how fast does he get to the front to the back? I mean, once you crack, and they just ride past you. He's going to hang on just as long as he can without making the ultimate sacrifice, because he's got to get to the finish. Tomorrow's a big day for the team as well. So Cancellara now will ease up slowly and fall steadily back. And in front of him there was Jurgen van der Walle, I think, the Belgian.
Yeah, that's Jurgen van der Walle there in the white jersey of Team Quickstep. But these guys now throwing caution completely to the wall, because they're going to toughen this race up. Vladimir Gustov is the young man on the front now. There's Cadel Evans in about 4th position, a little bit further back, a little bit further forward. In front of him in the polka dot is Bernard Cole. He lies in 2nd place in the overall classification. He's looking for just 7 seconds. But if he wants to win the Tour de France, he's got to get himself a whole chunk of time, because Bernard Cole in 29 kilometers lost 1.5 minutes to Cadel Evans in the first time trial.
10 minutes exactly, so the peloton have pulled back 2 minutes since the climb started on the leader. The pursuers are getting even closer than that. We're just 40 kilometers from the finish, really. That's Dupont, who's come off the back there, new rider in his race. Eric Zabel, the sprinter nearest camera, 103 is Eric Dupont. But these riders also now are thinking, well, we're approximately a third of the way up the climb. We'll be fine. It's all downhill to the finish. No elimination for us today.
Very experienced man, Eric Zabel. He'll just ride within himself and think about the possibility of a stage win on the road up to Saint-Etienne, for example, when a lot of the sprinters will get left behind. He's the kind of man who can still survive the big climbs and still get in with a chance of winning the sprint down towards the end. I just heard that Kurt Adler Arvidsson had been drop-filled by that group of 28. Now, I wonder if he's sitting up to wait for the main field, because it's getting to the point now where they need a little bit more firepower, Team CSC. They're leaving this now up to Gustav, and still they haven't yet decimated the main field.
And it's still that nobody's attacked to open this up yet. They're all watching each other. Bernard Cole is the rider most likely to, in second place there in the polka dot jersey. This is Schumacher. Still got a nice rhythm, even so. They're about 2 3/4 minutes behind those chasers just now.
Look exactly as if he's enjoying the Tour this afternoon now, does he, with 16 miles to go. And they're assuming that he's going to get caught at around about 17 kilometers from the finish, but it's difficult
27.
to predict. 27 kilometers from the finish. That's a little bit difficult to do on a stage like this, make these predictions.
Which means he will be caught 4 kilometers from the summit of this mountain. Of course, the computer bases on average speed all of the time, and the average speed of the chase has now increased somewhat, and they are closing the gap. 2:43 is what the computer is saying. There's the lonely figure of Schumacher as we go down the slopes here of the Col de la Bonette. And there's still a long way as we seek to find the rise. That's a big gap. There's a lot of chasing still to be done. There they are. 28 riders are presumably in that group. I don't see anybody behind just now.
Well, in fact, Kurt Adler Arvidsson has been dropped from that group, so it has been reduced by a couple. And I'm wondering, Phil, whether that's not a technical dropping off the back. There's Jens Voigt still at the front end of the group, so Jens is still pretty strong. But the gap is coming down to Schumacher. It's only 2.5 minutes. And 9:41 to the group of the yellow jerseys, so they are now starting to eat into the advantage of Schumacher as well. There's the yellow jersey, comfortably in the main field, and you can see all around Cadel Evans. There was an armada of Silence Lotto riders too. These are riders who are in a group caught in no man's land, and they're dropping back, and one of those riders is Mikel Astrolosa. I think that's Philippe Gilbert as well, and he's about to end up back in the main field. There's the yellow jersey there. Kunigo is off the front. Gustav, by the way, is a rider who's been around for quite some time, but he's not been a prolific winner. In fact, since he turned professional, he's only ever won one race, and that was back in 2003.
A little bit slower at the back here as the riders are coming down into what we call the caboose, the last train before they are detached from the race. Sebastian Rossler was the white and blue rider there. He did very well. He was in the early breakaway. 9:26.
This is the second group on the road, and this is the group of Damiano Cunego. He's got a number of teammates in there helping him, Phil, and keeping the pressure on. And they're actually starting to eat into the advantage of Stefan Schumacher, because it's now down to just 2.5 minutes.
Well, I counted 23 riders in this bunch. There were 30, but the computer is still saying there are 28. So there are a number of riders dropped from this group now as they lift their tempo up. The little prince has slipped off the front, which is indicating to me he might be planning a move.
Jens Voigt sitting there in 4th position. He's wondering when there's going to be a return from the rear of his teammates, because he will know exactly what's happening. And this is Heimar Zubeldia.
Yeah.
Now, he was in that original group of riders, which was 24, then it swelled to 31, and now it's slowly starting to be reduced. So Heimar Zubeldia, 5th on 2 occasions in the Tour de France, is not enjoying his escapade through the mountains here.
I thought he had a chance of a top finish this year. Philippe Gilbert, he also isn't riding so well this section of the Tour either. He's also detached. Zubeldia lost a lot of time up to Prato Novoso 2 days ago, and so he's slipping away. This is the remnants of the main field.
Remnants of the chase group, the second group on the road.
The 24.
Yeah.
Well, I think we're about 20 riders now. As we maybe a chance to look at this. Koos Moerenhout is the rider at the back from Holland.
Further down the road now, it's still Vladimir Gustav on the front, 31 years of age. He's a very tough competitor. As I said, Phil, he's not a great winner. He's from Ukraine, but he is a great worker, and he's a great asset to this team, Team CSC. Moving to the front now, it's interesting to note that Team Gerolsteiner are starting to take up a little bit of pacemaking, and nobody knows how good Bernard Cole can be on the mountains, and everybody, I think, was a little bit taken off guard the other day by the ferocity of his attack on the climb up to Prato Nervoso, and maybe he will be the man looking to try and get a little bit of time back on a stage like today.
That's the Slovakian rider there, Peter Velits, who spent a lot of his career racing early days in South Africa. Now on Team Milram, just coming off the back there. He's a good climber. He's a very young man, former under-23 World Road Race champion. There's the lead chase group. It looks to me as though it's nothing like the number of riders the computer is telling us right now. 9 minutes 10 seconds. Just seen it change on the screen. That came in from the race radio.
Samy Dumoulin, and he's gone from the front to the back as well on the slopes of this climb, but he will have had a little bit of an easy ride through the valley and over that first climb, because he'll be riding at his own time, and he won't now be too concerned about the elimination time, and I'm pretty sure he won't be too concerned, Phil, about trying to get onto the back step of this bus, because this is the express bus to the Col de la Bonette.
He's looking at it, but I think he'll just pass out as the field continue the ascent here. This is the second group, saying at 2 minutes 27. The pulse rates, by the way, checking on Ralph Gratch at the moment, pumping out 154 beats to the minute and 360 watts. He's just into the yellow zone, so as long as he stays outside of that red zone, he'll be okay.
Sylvain Chavanel has come to the front now for this second group. This is the group of Damiano Cunego, and he's trying to benefit his teammates in this group, David Moncoutier, who is a very good climber, and of course he's trying to look after the position of Maxime Montfort, who's looking to challenge in the Best Young Rider competition.
Well, there's the valley as we cut through the middle here on the Col de Restefan. We'll see the Bonnet as we get up towards the summit. There's still a way to go. We top it at 23 kilometers to go. And still here, dancing on those pedals, is Remy Di Gregorio. Remember him? He was the first French rider, first rider in the Tour, over the top of the Col de Tourmalet in the Pyrenees. And that was a bit of an achievement for a Frenchman. Hasn't been done since 2003. This is poor old Samy Dumoulin, now coming backwards from that peloton. Well, don't worry, Sammy, because there's a big group of riders coming up behind, and they'll be in no urgent rush for the finish, so you probably jump onto that lot.
Well, he'll just try and get himself over the summit of this climb if he can here this afternoon. There's the yellow jersey. Right behind him, Alejandro Valverde. You can recognize him because of the yellow handlebars. In front of Frank Schleck there was Carlos Sastre. Yeah, Danny Pate has come back from the leading group.
To the peloton now.
Yep. Complicated race to follow here this afternoon, but just looking now at, we're still calling it the peloton, Phil, but it's been really pretty much reduced in numbers because of the pacemaking done by one team, and that team really is Team CSC.
Well, he'll be looking for Christian van der Velde. That's his team leader, and that's what he's looking for right now. Whether he's got the legs to stay with this group, it's highly suspect, but he might have a word of encouragement for Christian as he slips away from the back. There he is, dead centre of our picture.
And if he's got any drinks or anything that will help Christian van der Velde, he'll pass them off before dropping off the back end of the group. He'll try and stay with the group as long as possible, because it's always a good motivational move if you've got another teammate in a group with you. This is getting to the nasty part of the climb now for Stefan Schumacher. These climbs, by the way, you might have noticed how he moved over to the outside of the corner. It's very steep on the inside of the corner, and on these cols the best thing to do is to take a long ride around the outside, because it has a much slope, a much slimmer, a much easier gradient.
This is the group that contains still Damiano Cunego. Is using a teammate all of his strength here. Maybe may pave the way for a little jump up to the finish. John Lee Augustin there, looking pretty confident. Back in the peloton, there's the yellow jersey. He looks a cool operator today. Smiles at the camera under no pressure. He always climbs like this. You can't tell just how Frank Schleck feels inside. Right
in front of him now is Carlos Sastre. Right behind him, Alejandro Valverde.
They've got this race under control just now, that's for sure.
Just a little bit further up there as well, Alexander Botcherov is the rider in the green shorts from Crédit Agricole.
Yeah, Danny Pate's just hung on to the back of that group at the moment, so he hasn't been left. 199 was his number. There's the torrents of water, which are the remnants of the melting snows of the winter. Nearly time to go back into the winter. And that is all that's left of the main body of the Tour de France down there. We've got that group ahead, and this is the select group containing those 6 favourites, all locked together by less than 50 seconds. Now they're using Andy Schleck on the front.
There's Christian van der Velde looking nice and comfortable. And just tagged on the back, as you said there, Phil, is Danny Payton. He'll try and stay there as long as possible. And the reason for that is if, for example, Christian van der Velde were to have any mechanical incident at all, then he would be right on hand to pass a wheel, to help him get back into the main pack. Any little bit of help that you can offer in a situation like this is extremely important. Moving a bit further up there was Kim Kirken.
Yes, just in front of the yellow jersey, his teammate Carlos Sastre. Here is Christian van der Velde, and he will have noted he looks absolutely cool as a cucumber here right now. They've got such a high tempo going here, but these big boys aren't in any way stressed out. And there's a lot of riders I wouldn't have thought would be here at this stage, so I'm not so sure it's as hard as it appears.
Well, it's pretty hard when you bear in mind there's 20 or 25 riders in the group. Danny Pate struggling to stay on the back of this group as long as he can. And how about that for a sprinter? Exactly. Leonardo Duque is still there.
A sprinter, although he is a Colombian, so they do have an element of being good climbers as well. But Duque is more a sprinter, and he's still there too.
Well, it's still a very select group, Phil, that's starting to form there. And the riders who are surviving are the riders who've got through the best day in the best possible situation. And they still have Vladimir Gustov to be able to offer a fair amount of pacemaking. That's the group that at one stage was as many as 31 riders caught in the middle.
Look at that kick. Look at that kick there, Paul. That's when it really bites your legs off.
That's pretty nasty. They're at about 2.5 minutes from the lone leader, and the lone leader is still Stefan Schumacher. And once they get into this part of the course, Phil, which is at around about 10 kilometers to go to the summit, they get into the part where the gradient sticks up to around about 8.5%.
Yeah.
This is still Gustov on the front here. Andy Schleck in 3rd position. Bernard Cole in 4th position. They know that this is going to be a long, hard climb once they get up to 2,800 meters in altitude. The air starts to get very rare indeed. This is Vladimir Gustov on the front, and he's still got a little bit of power, as we can see. Somebody's trying to make a move out of the Popovic group. This, I think, will be Valjavec.
I think there's no other rider in there from AG2R, so it is Tadeusz Valjavec. We've seen his name around the roads here in the mountains because, like all of these Baltic state countries, they do a lot of their preparation and turning professional in Italy. And back on French roads now, of course, as the Tour de France comes back home today. 8 minutes, so the bunch has taken 4 minutes out of the leader on the climb so far. We top out at 23 kilometers to go, so there's still 13 kilometers of ascent.
Well, that's what it looks like up at the top of the Col de la Bonette, and it's still an awful long way to go for many of these bike riders. Clear blue skies here this afternoon, completely different to the way the riders left the Alps 48 hours ago, because it was covered in snow and rain. As we look down on the main field, that is not a big group, Phil, that we're looking at there, but bear in mind there's still 30 riders in front of the main field on the road, and a various combination of different teammates for different leaders.
Oh dear, and this spells trouble here for
Elmiger.
Martin Elmiger, who's had a couple of strong days in the Tour de France, but not having anything of it now.
Yes, I know exactly how you feel, Martin. It's goodbye for the moment, and come back and fight another day, because it is definitely a very difficult climb, the one we're facing ourselves up to. Andy Schleck here, looking over his shoulder, wants to know the presence of the yellow jersey and his brother, Frank.
Sebastian Lang up here too, as we're seeing here. Good tempo. Andy will just work as long as he can. This is Gustov, and the yellow jersey in the center, but it has become a very select group. Ever since we hit that 9% slope, we've dropped off quite a few riders here. Not Leonardo Duque though. He's hung on in the back. I don't see Danny Pate, unless this is him here. No, it's not. I think Danny Pate in fact got dropped. We're looking at Frank Schleck here. No trouble at all so far on the steepest climb of the day. It tops out at 23 kilometers to go, Paul, with 12 kilometers still to climb, and he's right up behind his teammate Carlos Sastre. Nobody seems able to hit him.
Nobody yet. I think they're still waiting. They're softening it up right behind him, though. There is Denny Menchov, looking calm and collected. His face is not showing us any emotion at all. Just in front of Menchov there, wearing number 27, is Sammy Sanchez. He's a great climber. He too will be thinking about something. They all may be just a little bit wary of how long this climb is, because it's a very long climb at 25.5 kilometers from top to bottom. And of course, topping out at the high spot of this year's tour, in excess of 2,800 meters in altitude. This is the next group on the road, the second group on the road. Tadek Valjavec is one of the riders setting the pacemaking. A little bit further back is Jaroslav Popovic, then it's Jens Voigt, and they're all in search of this man. And I have a funny feeling that Stefan Schumacher may very well have hit the wall here this afternoon, because it's now, with 12 kilometers to go, come to inside of 2 minutes. Well, it was a long, brave move by him.
There's another hairpin bend, but it kicks up. This is the second group on the road. 7:49 is the peloton, where the maillot jaune is, and this group is a lot closer than that. The last time check, we got exactly 2 minutes behind Schumacher. The computer says he'll be caught 4 kilometers from the summit. Well, we'll see.
This is Cyril Dessel on the front now. A little bit further back, his teammate Tadek Valjavec is also looking rather good in the group this afternoon. There, over on the left-hand side, is big Jens Voigt. And I have a feeling, you know, Phil, that Stefan Schumacher may well have hit the wall, because he's not looking very comfortable at all. There's Sitsu, there's George Hincapie. And it's great to see Ryder Hesjedal, the Canadian rider, looking pretty comfortable in this group.
Just tagged on the back there. It's his first Tour de France for Garmin Chipotle, and he's looking okay at the moment. Now, this is a move that lifted the pace.
No, this is not a move. This is going backwards by Damiano Cunego.
Well, very, very surprising. It was his teammate who was doing all the pacemaking, and it looks as though it might have hurt his own team man.
Well, that is amazing. I mean, he came out on a mission this afternoon to try and get himself a possible win on the stage. Well, I think he's recovered a fraction there, Phil.
I'm wondering if he called his mate back there was a problem.
He might have gone through a bad patch, but he's getting himself back into this group, which again, from a maximum of 31 riders at one stage, it's reduced now to just a few. This is an acceleration. I think this again is an acceleration coming from Cyril Dessel.
Dessel's had his great moment a couple of years ago in the Tour de France. He led it for a day. Finished top Frenchman in 7th place on that occasion. A minute 43 is the gap now for the immediate pursuit. So they are coming back slowly, and accelerations like this is going to hurt the gap for sure.
Well, the two riders in there from AG2R. It's Tadek Valjavec on the front. Cyril Dessel now in 5th position. Looking very calm and collected there in 3rd place is Jaroslav Popovic.
What about John Lee Augustin? Because I'm pretty sure this is him in 2nd wheel here. The youngest man in the race, first Tour de France. He's not afraid of the mountains at all.
Dragging himself back up there as well. It looks like Sandy Cassar. But again, the acceleration almost over as we start to get some kind of sense coming into the group. Jens Voigt pretty happy to be there. He's the man with the yellow helmets. Now it's the turn of Andy Schleck to come to the front, and that's going to make it a little bit more difficult.
Well, I counted just 12 riders there as they continue to fall away. That's Gustav gone now. Another one for CSC, done his job. Time to bail out, no more legs. Slowly but surely, they're revealing the vulnerability of the race leader. He'll be left alone along with Carlos Sastre at some stage, but that was the plan.
Well, it's good to see a big Mario Ertz is in there. This is Alejandro Valverde. Just moving forward. He now knows that the acceleration is coming. So, excuse me, Monsieur Vaugondi, I'm coming by. I need to move to the front end of this group because it's getting just a little bit grippy at the back here.
And look why. Andy Schleck is on the front now.
Andy Schleck, followed by Carlos Sastre. Still not showing any signs of difficulty. The man in the polka dot jersey is Bernard Coe.
It's the tempo riding now, and remember, Carlos Sastre needs time in the mountains. He needs a lot of time in the mountains, because if he doesn't get that time in the mountains, then he won't win the Tour, because he'll lose time in the time trial.
Valjavec has gone again here at the front end, covered once more there by Jaroslav Popovic. They really are now, Phil, in this second group on the road, starting to throw caution to the wind, and big George Hincapie is coming across.
Good for him, because look how that corner kicked up there to 10% as they made that bend, and in fact it's steeper than 10% just on that bend. Hincapie did well to read that one. This is a very select group of 7 riders going away now.
Well, it looks like one of the riders from Case d'Epargne has seen the difficulty there. Damiano Cunego is out of this bike race, Phil. There he is on the left-hand side of the road. I don't think he likes his Tour de France.
He might well be riding into abandonment if he realises he hasn't got the legs. He won't go to Paris. It's number 71. This was to be his big day, I think, and he's put himself in a position for it to be so. But now he's cracked. A minute 23 is the gap from the pursuit up to the leader, remember. And it looks to me as though they are closing in now, and those 7 riders who've just made the split are now free to fly.
It just makes me think to what Lance Armstrong was saying overnight when he was interviewed by an American newspaper, Phil. He said, I've got a lot of Italian friends, and I keep trying to tell them the Giro d'Italia has got nothing at all in relationship to the Tour de France. The Tour is so much harder, so much longer, and so much higher. And I think today for Damiano Cunego, here is the proof.
Yes, and Federigo was 1 for 1 going off the back. Bocciov here in a spot of bother as well. This is Dmitry Fofanov. We saw him out training on the lower slopes yesterday.
And the white jerseys going back as well, Nibali.
Yes.
He's under a spot of bother too. I would expect his teammate is still up there, Kreuziger. He was the recent winner of the Tour of Switzerland, but don't panic in a stage like this. Got to ride yourself back into this race. Keep yourself well within your limits. But it just goes to show how tough the race is at the front, and that's all because of the pacemaking by one Andy Schleck.
Well, this is a vicious climb. This is a strong man's climb, and Nibali, the young first-timer in the Tour, under 25. So there's a rider who's got perhaps not the strength yet in those legs. Just look at this young man, though. This is Andy Schleck, just doing just what he did on Prato Novoso. Lift the pace up and try to crack the riders. Menchov's up for it, just caught a glimpse of him. Roman Kreuziger is up here as well. He could be the next white jersey wearer. That group has now accelerated. It's going to split to pieces up there.
Vaugondi, champion of France, is doing a great ride there, Phil, because he's still just about staying in contact. Mario Ertz is a teammate of Cadel Evans. He's just been left behind. Fortunately for Cadel Evans, he's still got a teammate in front because Jaroslav Popovic is having probably his ride of the Tour this year.
Which was always the plan, but just look at the climb now, eliminating riders one by one here. You can feel the height up here. We've still got a fair way to climb to the top. Remember, we crossed the top, 23 kilometers to go. Look, they've still got 10 kilometers to climb, and that's the leader.
This is the second group on the road here. There's big George Hincapie. He's ridden across to this gap. There's Valjavec, and I think it was Sitsu. Popovic looks imperial here this afternoon.
He's found his legs, the legs that won him a stage into Carcassonne a couple of years ago, the legs which have really made him a strong man in the team of Lance Armstrong. He's still casual up there.
Casually being chased by his former teammate there as well, because George Hincapie is coming across the gap. Tête de la course, the front end of the bike race, at 9.8 kilometers to go to the summit, and Stefan Schumacher does not look like a happy camper.
Well, he's 6 minutes up on the yellow jersey group. We're looking here now at the select group, which is slowly being whittled down. And I'm just looking there, that's Danny Pate, I think, who's just been detached from the group. And we need to go up to the lead group now to find out just who is left in this. There is the yellow jersey in the Tour de France, riding just 2 riders back from his brother Andy, who is setting a tempo which is breaking the peloton up.
Just looking back, there's Menchov. The big names are all here, but I tell you what, it's now starting to crack. Now you can see, looking at the back of this group, there's a lot of riders here. There you can see Andy Schleck is really racking it up at the front, and I think one casualty of this big acceleration here is Christian van der Velde. As you can see now, Schleck is all over the front, Sastre, and this is a cracking
Well, I think Van der Velde has dropped there, Paul, because he's not in that group up the road at the moment. He needs to dig deep right now. Everybody, it's every man for himself.
Vladimir Efimkin is going backwards as well, Phil. Another rider who's in the top 10 in the overall classification. The game is playing out here, and still there's no sign of any emotion for Menchov in the orange jersey. Caping right up to the front end of it. There over on the right-hand side in the mainly red and black jersey is Cadel Evans. He's looking a lot more comfortable today than he was a few days ago. Also still in the group as well is Kim Kirken. But yes, Christian van der Velde has disappeared from this group. Now, he can survive, he can recuperate and try and find his own rhythm to come back into this group. Or he can make a rip-roaring descent over the top. But at 10 kilometres to go, Phil, it's a long way.
Well, this has been an amazing climb, but now from the front to the back has come Kurt Attel Arvesen. A plan, you see. He was in the front group. He's come to give the firepower to the chasers now, and here he is. He immediately takes the pace at the front. Van der Velde is in trouble and has been unhitched. I've seen up here certainly Sastre, certainly Scheck, certainly Cole, certainly Menchov. I think at the moment it's only Van der Velde who has gone back.
Well, he was put under a bit of difficulty, and it was because of that acceleration there by Andy Schleck. Now they've got a little bit of reinforcement as well here for Team CSC, because Kurt Adler Arvesen, who was in that group of 24 riders, was sent up there with a plan. Once they got to this climb, he had to come back and give the race a little bit more impetus. Just suffering over there on the left-hand side.
One Antonio Fletcher. I was about to say this guy's done the ride of his life here, but he's just about to crack right now.
Well, he was also one of the riders in that leading group, and he will stay with this group for as long as possible, because it's always good to have a spare teammate just in case. Further up the road, Phil, this is the second group on the road. Big George Hincapie is in this group, as you can see, also riding there. They're in pursuit of this man, and I make it not much more than a minute advantage they've got on this man, and I have a feeling he's going to get caught by that group before the summit.
Well, again, we're pulling back with the helicopter. We're going to get some idea of the relationship of the gap now. 45 seconds.
And I would say 45 seconds it is. And it's 5 minutes and 16 seconds back to the yellow jersey group. This is the second group on the road. That's Cyril Dessel now setting the tempo for Team AG2R. Hincapie and Konstantin Sitsu. Sitsu is a very young rider from Belarusia. Yaroslav Popovic there. Just still two riders in this group as well from the Case d'Epargne squad, so that's important for them. Just going through there is David Arroyo. That's Hincapie sitting on the back of the group. The other rider from Case d'Epargne in here, in fact, is Nicolas Portal. So he's doing a great ride here this afternoon. Well, that chase group now is just down to 10 riders.
Well, the pressure is enormous. You see the advance of a good, strong team now, because Kurt Attel Arvesen came from that front group back to this group purely to help this group, and now picking off riders from that breakaway. And I can't see Cadel here.
Yeah, he's there.
Oh, there he is. There he's tucked in behind Valverde.
Yep. Doing a good ride is number 41 there, Kim
Absolutely.
Kirken. He said the Alps would be better for him than the Pyrenees, and that seems to be the case here this afternoon. 4 riders there from Team CSC. They're looking around to see who's been damaged. The man they really want to damage, though, is not Christian van der Velde. It's Cadel Evans, because they know if they want to win the Tour de France, they need time, and they need serious time. And Cadel knows that. He will just mark them.
Well, you mentioned Kim Kirken. He said this morning that he had a broken spoke and was left to stand on the final finishing climb 2 days ago for quite a long time till the car came up from the splitting race. The time he got a wheel, he said once he chased back, he didn't lose more, and he lost less than a minute to the riders on the climb. So he felt his form was very good, and he was expecting big things today. And I think he's proving that now, because this group is only about 13 strong, if that.
There's still an awful long way to go to the summit. Kurt Atler Arvesen finding a little bit more power in those legs of his, because he needs to keep the pressure on. They've still got a joker up the front as well, Phil, because of course Jens Voigt is in that group of riders who are just about to catch Stefan Schumacher.
Well, Arvesen is doing a great team job here. He too will swing off shortly. The yellow jersey has done nothing but hold pace, and that's the way it should be. Keep him till the last one to move. This is Schumacher. The great group behind is at 37 seconds, but he's still hanging in there. But we've still got 8 kilometers up this mountain.
There's still 8 kilometers to go to the summit of the climb, and this is the second group on the road. There you can see Sitsu. There you can see George Hincapie, the Barlow World rider. John Lee Augustin, 21 years of age, Phil, in his first participation ever at the Tour de France. That's phenomenal.
Bernard Cole again springing us a big surprise there. The Geldstein leader of the King of the Mountain, sitting on the wheel of the yellow jersey. Menchoff is behind Cole. This is Christophe Lemervel here, who has himself being dropped now, caught and dropped, but he's got to hang on in there, because once he's over this last few kilometers, yeah, we know how you feel, Christophe, but once over the top, it's all downhill to the finish.
Yes, you can see still the pacemaking being done at the front by Kurt Adler Arvidsson. He was in that breakaway. That was a great move. There's a rider just dropping back there as well from Cofidis, and he will be one of the riders again dropping back from the leading groups that we've had.
10 riders left in the yellow jersey group.
10 riders left in the yellow jersey group, and still they keep the pressure on, still they keep the power on. Cadel Evans at the back there is in contact with the group. This is David Moncoutier, so he's been caught and dropped by the yellow jersey group. He was in for a long time, that second group on the road, and he's not enjoying the altitude that we're going up to here. By the time we get to the top of this climb, we'll be looking at over 9,000 feet in altitude. We're getting into the real rarefied air part of the course today.
The face on Kurt Adler Arvidsson here, winner of a stage early on in the Tour de France, but now here playing his real role as a super domestique, and he'll just hurt himself till he can pedal no longer, and then he'll drop off.
Well, this really now is proving to be the tough man in the race here this afternoon, as we look here at this man, Stefan Schumacher, took off on the Col de la Lombard. He hasn't, Phil, got very much more than 30 seconds advantage over that group behind him. In fact, that 30 seconds is a lot less, because here you can see the group which is being led. I'm not sure who's leading that group, but in that group are the survivors of that group of 24.
And now they're down to 9 riders here, so you've got one leader at approximately half a minute, 9 chasers. The yellow jersey group is 10 chasers. We'll see the odd one pop into camera as they go backwards towards the bottom of the climb. 4 minutes 28 is the spread between the maillot jaune and the leader. This is Popovic again as they stay, and we'll probably now see that lone leader, Schumacher. He's still got 6 kilometers before he crosses the summit.
Cyril Dessel is the man setting the pace on the front. Popovic is having the best day that he's had in the Tour de France so far, Phil. He's just sitting at the front of that group. Alongside him there as well, the rider in there for Française des Jeux is Sandy Cassar. And now there's a little bit of an acceleration coming to the front. Arvidsson digs that little bit deeper. He knows he's got to keep this pressure on here this afternoon.
Well, we're just seeing them catch it with Canego. This is Paolo Tirolongo here, who's also on his way backwards. It's a tough, tough climb. It's unbelievably hard, this mountain. It's the highest through road in Europe at over 9,000 feet. The riders are being picked off one by one. This is Astolosa, is it? He's been caught as well. These guys, we forget about them. They've been up and back and down. Our cameras have missed them. Is Kim Kirken showing just a little bit of effort there? No, he's back in. Volker's the rider on the back.
Volker also a rider in that leading group of 5 riders early on, slowly but surely being decanted out through the main field as the top men, the creme de la creme, are starting to come to the top end of the pack. Still no thought of a move. I can tell you what, the Carlos Sastre is starting to puff and wheeze a fraction as well. And look at the face there on Denny Menchoff, not showing any emotion at all. Schumacher, if he looks over his shoulder there, and he can as we climb out of the tree line here, Phil, he will look back and he'll see the cars and know that these men are coming back to him.
But what an outstanding performance he's giving here, Schumacher. He really has. He's led over one huge col. This one's even higher, and he's now just 5 kilometers from going over the top in first place. As it's still a long gap to bridge when you're climbing a mountain, this.
It certainly is. Dessel is doing a day very much like the day he had in the Pyrenees a couple of years ago when he got himself the yellow jersey from a breakaway like this. Well, there's no yellow jersey at the end of the day for him today, but possibly Arvidsson has done his job, and he's... you know, when you
feel
stop,
the pain in those legs now.
When you stop working like that from the group, there's absolutely nothing left. He's got to try and recuperate a fraction now, Phil, and just get the rhythm going to get himself over the top of this climb. Now it's up to Andy Schleck.
now, the younger of the Schlecks here. He first a visit to the Tour of Italy. He finished second and best young rider, of course. There he is now. Now it's the young Andy for the two leaders of Team CSC. It's taken a while to eliminate everybody from this squad, but now it's him as the pacemaker. And you've got Frank Schleck and Carlos Sastre to fly the flag for the team. And they are sat right there, and they could not be in a stronger position.
They're in a great position, but what they have to do is attack. They have to try and put big time gaps between themselves and Menchov and Cadel Evans if they want to dream about taking this yellow jersey all the way up to Paris. But the problem is, Phil, in this rarefied air where we are now at this altitude, it's very difficult to make a long and sustained effort.
Cyril Dessel, again, it kicks up nastily at nearly 10% at this point. Hurts the legs once again. Cadel Evans still, oh, this is the front group. This is Popovic up here, of course it is. As we go a little bit closer to the summit. And it's almost you want to will this man over the top in first place now. Stefan Schumacher, as the scenery behind, he's getting above all of the peaks. There is the remnants of the chase group on the Tour de France, and that the yellow jersey is equally as small as one by one riders are now being eliminated from the bunches. But still up the road, the lone leader Stefan Schumacher, but the blanket over the two chase groups now, less than 4 minutes. At the start of the climb, it was 12, and there they are.
Well, they really are eliminating a lot of riders here this afternoon, but maybe not eliminating the riders they want to. Andy Schleck is being forced here to set the tempo on the front end of the group at Maillot Jaune, the group of the yellow jersey. But behind, Menchov is sitting there nice and calm and collected as you like. Look at him, the man in the orange jersey there of Team Rabobank.
Dancing on the back here, Mikel Astalosa. They've just brought him back, and just in front of him is Thomas Voigtler. Kim Kirken, number 41 for Team Columbia, is doing a great ride, but he's not got rid of the men that are ahead of him on the overall, so he's not climbing up the overall classification. Although, sadly, Christian van der Velde has been dropped at the moment, and we don't know his exact location.
Well, they're not far away from catching Stefan Schumacher, and the question is, Phil, has he got the legs left there to stay with the group and accompany them up to the summit of this climb?
27.2 kilometers, that's where the race distance is. We crest the top at 23.5. 18 seconds. They're slowly but surely clawing in Schumacher. There he is.
Well, I'll tell you what,
and there they are.
He's doing a great ride because he's not succumbing at all to the effort that he's put in over the Col de la Lombard and over the majority of this Col de la Bonette. And he's still riding along, and he's giving them a hard time to actually pull in that final 15 or 20 seconds.
It's less than 4 kilometers to the top, so I'm delighted to say the computer was wrong again. He predicted the catch at 4, but they're going to catch him at 3 by the look of it to the summit here. And they are coming slowly but surely. They'll be fighting out there for first place. And I have to say, I know a lot of people in South Africa will be on the edge of the seat, but right in this group is the youngest cyclist in the race from South Africa. He was brought up in Port Elizabeth, John Lee Augustin. And you know, wouldn't surprise me, Paul, if he's got the legs to try and lead this group.
Well, he really is.
There he is
riding
in the red off to the right.
Team Barlow World just over to the right-hand side. He's a young kid at 21 years of age, and it's a big shock to come to a race like the Tour de France because it is bigger and more powerful than anything else he's ever been to in his career.
And he's more than surviving it.
There's the yellow jersey. Now Carlos Sastre comes to the front. He too now is setting up a little bit of the pacemaking. Frank Schleck goes by him. Valverde looks pretty good to me there in his yellow and red jersey. Champion of Spain. A title which he got just before the start of the race this year. Schleck and Sastre chatting to each other. Number 35. Well, Jose Ivan Gutierrez has come back and gone straight through the back. He's not enjoying his ride this afternoon. Ciao, ciao. I'll see you later. But still, Andy Schleck comes to the front.
Well, Andy has been unbelievable in the pacemaking for his brother Frank. Totally unselfish, these two. They're a perfect family. And Frank has never looked in any degree of difficulty. He said something then. I don't know what it was. Maybe just hold it there or slow down or something.
Well, they do communicate a lot, these two brothers. Slow down, accelerate. And if they want to do any damage, Phil, they've got to think now about changing the speed. Because that's the thing that riders like...
Here he goes.
Well, I was just
Sastre.
mentioning... No, he hasn't got
a
it.
little dummy.
Yeah, the reason he wouldn't move was because immediately he had Bernard Cole on his wheel, but that's the only way they're going to put time between themselves and Cadel Evans. Now you see how Cadel Evans has moved up to the front. He now knows that these guys are going to launch the offensives.
It's pistols at dawn now. That was the first attack there, believe it or not. That's now put them all on the metal, and it's already hit here. Astelosa, who's gone off the back. Well, as we look towards the top of a barren climb here, the Col de la Bonette, all the riders except Christian van der Velde in the top 6 overall. Volker here has cracked as well. Andy Schleck has lifted the ante that little bit more now, and only the men in the most important bracket of the Tour are still together. There is Yellow. He doesn't look in any trouble, and he's got Cadel Evans right alongside him. But if they don't get time off Cadel, Paul, they know he'll win the Tour de France.
That's the important thing. They know that in the back of their minds. They know they need time. But to get rid of a man like Cadel Evans like this, Phil, you don't try and ride him off your wheel. You've got to attack. You've got to change the rhythm. You've got to change the pace. That's what riders like Cadel and Denny Menchov don't like. They don't have that ability to change the speed on a climb. 5 kilometers to go to the summit.
Well, that makes the summit 21, which wasn't quite what the book said. It said the summit was at 23, so that's a little bit unfair if the riders are expecting that. But that's what it said. 5 kilometers to go. Oh no, sorry, of course we're working on the leaders, aren't we? Well, they were the leaders now.
They're the leaders.
Yes,
they're 5 kilometers to go to the summit, and that's 26 kilometers to go to the finish. Still sitting on the back.
20. Oh, 26 from this moment.
26
yes.
From this moment.
Yes,
21
yes.
From the summit.
Yes.
And that's what we're looking at here. But we're not looking at this group, because this group is a little bit further back.
Now this is the Maillot Jaune group, but it's not that
Valverde.
far back, Paul.
Valverde.
As Valverde starts the attack, the gap is down to less than 3 minutes.
Valverde got the bit between the teeth here this afternoon, and he goes up through the outside. He's trying to set something up. He wanted to start changing the pace, but it's Bernard Cole has gone over the top of him, and it's put Kirken into a little bit of difficulty. He's trying to find the rhythm, but this young man from Austria, Bernard Cole, has got an incredible ability to change the pace. And have they put anybody into difficulty? No, not yet. Nobody's been eliminated from that little bit of acceleration. The only man who really got caught out by those accelerations, of course, was Kim Kirken. But if they slow down like this, that'll give him a chance to pull himself back in. So, at the front of the race, they've pulled themselves back to Stefan Schumacher. So 10 riders at the front of the race, leading the yellow jersey group by 2 minutes and 48 seconds. Kirken has come back into this group. It just goes to show how fragile his presence in this yellow jersey group is. A bit of infighting now. There's 5 minutes to go. 5 kilometers to go to the summit of this climb, and that's going to be around about 16 or 17 minutes of climbing to the top.
9 riders here. We've had a couple of tentatives. They're the lineup. Cadel Evans, Carlos Sastre, André and Frank Schleck, Samuel Sanchez, Alejandro Valverde, Kim Kirken, Bernard Cole and Dennis Menchov. All the big names of the Tour de France are right in front of our camera, except sadly Christian van der Velde.
Well, van der Velde has just got to keep himself within his own limit to make sure he doesn't ride too crazily. Now this is Jens Voigt. Now this could change the whole of the front end of this main field.
What's he going to do?
He's got
There's
bottles
the bottle
sticking out of his shirt. Here's a bottle. You want this? No. Do you want one? No. I've got water here. I've got glucose drinks. There you go. What a man Jens Voigt is. He was in the breakaway earlier on. He's now back in the group.
That's incredible. He's got all those bottles from the car. He's fallen back from the breakaway, looked after his mates, and now he's probably going to ride down and off the back of the line because his day's work is done. Frank Schleck is not looking in any form of distress at all. If anything, Carlos Sastre is looking a little less happy. They're going under the 25 kilometers to go banner now, which leaves them a couple of kilometers to the top.
Well, leaves them about 4 kilometers to the top. This is the group that contains George Hincapie. Here's Konstantin Sitsu. There's John-Lee Augustin of Team Barlow World, 21 years of age. Hincapie's looking very comfortable sitting at the back of this group. And they've got themselves, Phil, around about a 2.5 minute advantage over the front end of the main field.
It could almost come together, this, you know, the whole race at the front, which had put about 18 riders all together on the ride down to the finish. And there's no way the organisers expected this, because they have a very narrow finish here. And it's not often the organisers ever make mistakes either, but the book cleanly states the top is at 23.5 kilometres to go, and it looks like it's at 21. And they virtually never make mistakes on these facts.
Check out Jens Voigt. He was in the leading group earlier on. He's come back into the main group with the yellow jersey, his own teammate Kim Kirken, and he's going to find a little bit more to dish out an extra bit of pain to riders like Cadel Evans, Valverde and Denis Menchov.
Gianpaolo Schuler of Bala Worlds come back from the leaders, back into the chase group here. There's Andy Schleck. Well, what can you say about Jens Voigt? I think we've said it more and more times throughout our career, but this guy never knows when to throw in the towel and have a quiet ride to the finish. He's going to sacrifice his last ounce of effort for this group and then fall off. Kim Kirken's in the spot of bother right now.
Well, every time it accelerates, Kirken drops off the back a fraction, but he doesn't need to panic. He needs to try and stay in contact. Dropping to the back there, you just might have noticed Carlos Sastre.
Well, we don't want him to lose any gaps if he wants to stay with the group. It's important. Menchov doesn't look to be under any stress, and the way they're riding this, it looks to me like they're trying to keep it the status quo. They've got one casualty in Christian van der Velde, but they're looking for a showdown on Alpe d'Huez tomorrow.
Yep, I don't think they should really wait that long. They should really take every opportunity that they have. Now, this is Cyril Dessel. Jaroslav Popovic is there a little bit further back. John Lee Augustin in the red jersey with the yellow sleeves to it. And a couple more riders dropping back. This will be Maxime Montfort.
Yeah. Interesting, isn't it? Because look, it's Jens. Jens is just bringing these boys up. They are flying up the rest of on right now.
Well, Jens Voigt is through the 25 kilometre to go point now, and he will bury himself over the next kilometre or so, and then they will try and see if there's any acceleration left in the climbers of Team CSC as we get up to the high spot of the Tour de France this year.
We're into the section now, which is only 5%, so it's quite a shallow ascent, but it goes up to 8% again towards the end of the climb. So the riders are happy about this little bit of a leveling of the plateau, if you like. You can see that from the vegetation behind. This doesn't get to see daylight too often in every 12 months. The snows will be back very shortly.
Well, we're about 2,400 meters in altitude here, and the air does get very rarefied, and it's very difficult to make a long, prolonged effort. And if you want to try and make that effort and recuperate from it, it's a very difficult thing to do. But if they want to put the men behind them into difficulty, the riders from Team CSC, the Carlos Sastre and the riders like Andy Schleck have got to start accelerating, Phil, as they did on Prato Nervoso, because Menchov and Cadel Evans have a hard time responding to that change in pace.
Yes, they do. But Cadel Evans is having a much better ride today than he did up Prato Nervoso, which was a short strongman sprint. This is a serious mountain, to say the least. And so Cadel is going to feel very happy inside with the way life is right now. Maxime Montfort has cracked, and so too there has Sylvain Chavanel.
Just looking, Phil, at the position of the best young riders in this race. If the race continues the way it's progressing at the moment, Andy Schleck could very easily find himself in the best young rider competition tonight, because he's just dropped Maxime Montfort, and I haven't seen Roman Kreuziger or Vincenzo Nibali at all, and they were first, second and third in the best young rider competition.
Well, the mountain makes the difference. That's absolutely right. 3:39 is his deficit in the best young rider competition. He might well have that already over Nibali. I'm talking Nibali, I haven't seen Kreuziger most of the day either, so he must be back in the group somewhere. But this is Cyril Dessel finding his best form in the Tour de France since he led it for a day a couple of years ago. He's done a lot of the pacemaking here, but nobody has launched an attack, and that makes it, to me, advantage Evans, because if they don't get any time on Cadel on these mountain roads, he will do the fastest time trial of them all.
He certainly will. He knows in the back of his mind that he's got that time trialing ability. I'll tell you one thing, though, if this doesn't change in this leading group, it's also advantage George Hincapie. I remember he's won a stage in the Tour de France before, and that was in a big mountain.
Oh, this is sad, Paul, because the group has caught Schumacher and they've gone straight by him. He hasn't had the legs to lift. I'm not surprised, but it's still very, very sad.
Well, it's tough for Schumacher. He made the long breakaway, and I think it was probably the valley road in between the two climbs that really ate into his energy, and he's not able to recover. What he needs to do now is try and get himself over the top of this climb, and if he can stay within a minute or a minute 30, Phil, on those riders, he still has the ability to make the contact on the descent.
He's looking very, very tired. I'm not sure he won't do any more but freewheel to the finish. There's the Aussie Kangaroo on the far right there. That must be the encampment. Mind you, it looks a bit like Rock out here just now, as Uluru, as it's called these days, as Cadell Evans gets the cheers. John Lee Augustin, that young man, 4 riders back, 3 riders back in red, the youngest rider in the race, just over 21 years of age, and only in with a chance of winning the stage today, which I think would be absolutely unbelievable.
Valjavec started the day in 13th place overall, so he could prove a little bit of a worry for those riders in that group behind. He's looking for 6 minutes and 26 seconds, and quite possibly he could, with a good performance here this afternoon, be looking at skirting into the top 10. But the group of the yellow jersey have, bearing in mind, Phil, started this climb at 12 minutes behind the leaders, have pulled it back now to just 2.
Yes, and there's every possibility, because it's still a little way to climb, about 3 kilometers to go. Still a possibility they could pull back that group. This is Cole moving up now. He wants big points, don't forget. We're looking right along the ramp here now of the Col de la Bonette. Shortly we'll be going round in a complete circle round the bonnet before we drop down towards the finish in Jausiers. Just looking down. As we close in on the chase group here, there is the yellow jersey in 4th place on the wheel of Bernard Cole. Jens Voigt, who dropped back from the front group, he's now become the workhorse for CSC, and Andy Schleck just behind. The only casualty of the top 6 overall is still Christian van der Velde. Everybody else is locked in this very elite group, and this group itself 2 minutes 9 seconds behind the leaders.
And still no face, no show of any emotion on the face of Andy Schleck here. Jens Voigt doing a phenomenal job. A few moments ago, Phil, I thought he was going to get dropped from this group, but he fought his way back up, crawled his way back up, and the reason he's battling on the front is because of the wind. They're climbing this mountain, Phil, into a very heavy headwind, which is coming straight over the top of the Col de la Bonette and into the face of the riders.
Kim Kirken, number 41, he led the race in the opening week for Team Columbia. He's had a little bit of problems at times, but basically he's very much hung on here. The other rider is Samuel Sanchez in the orange jersey. They're the kind of intruders of the battle for the final title here, I think. The one-man damaged is Christian van der Velde. He's been dropped. He's got to hang on and try to not lose too much time on this group. It is now 1 kilometer to the summit for the leaders, and that young man, John Lee Augustin, the youngest cyclist in the race in his first tour from South Africa, has gone up there in 3rd wheel at the moment.
Well, they're not too far away from the summit of the highest road that the Tour de France ever takes, the highest road in Europe, 2,800 meters. Just sitting on the back there is Konstantin Sitsu from Team Columbia. Just in front of him is George Hincapie. And this group, I have to say, Phil, are now looking at the possibility of surviving to the finish, because if they crest this climb with a 2-minute advantage, I don't think the yellow jersey group can pull them back, because it's all the way downhill to the finish line.
Well, I am totally surprised, as I would think the organisation is, that here we have such a big group of cyclists coming up towards the summit of the biggest climb in the Tour de France, and equally so about the second group on the road at just over those 2 minutes. The big push here by Cyril Dessel.
This is a beast of a climb, and there's hardly any vegetation up here at all. It really is quite remarkable. This group here, you can see the wind, and there you can see on the other side is the road, Phil, and that is why this road gets its nickname, the Bonnet, because the road curves its way around. There's a move there from John Lee Augustin.
Oh my goodness me, South Africa will be on the seats now, because this is the man from Port Elizabeth, and he's obviously feeling extremely confident. There's no reaction from those boys behind. He is going to top the highest climb in the Tour de France, the youngest rider. You'd have got 1,000,000 to 1 on that, Paul.
You certainly would. That was a great acceleration by that young man, but I tell you what, he's opening up a gap, and the reason there's no response, Phil, is because nobody can respond.
They can't respond. Right.
Everyone is right on the edge of their limit in the race here at the moment, and John Lee Augustin is looking to get himself maximum points over the summit here. He looks over his shoulder. He's got to concentrate. It's a long ride down to the finish, though.
Yes, but it is downhill, but of course they will descend like demons after him, and George Hincapie is a great descender. But we are being sped out across the mountain now as they try to lift the speed here to catch John Lee Augustin. as they struggle up the climb here. Now look how narrow this road is. The snow markers on the right of the track here. Augustin's made the move. What he has done is completely shatter that leading group. He's got 4 riders trying to bring him back here, and he's got 1/3 of a kilometre to be the first man over this mountain.
Well, that's what he's thinking about. Look at the way he's bouncing on those pedals. He still looks quite fresh. He's still fairly supple as well. He's looking over his shoulder now to see what kind of damage he's done. He is now, Phil, about 200 metres away from the highest road in Europe, and that is quite phenomenal. He's a young rider, just 21 years of age at the start of the Tour, and he is the youngest bike rider in the Tour de France this year.
He celebrates his 22nd birthday on the 10th of August this year, and this would be far and away his greatest ever performance. Barlow World gave him a chance in a big team. He was on the list to ride the Tour last year, but he never made the final cut. He made it this year, and now he's about to top the highest point of this year's Tour de France. There is a reaction, but it's going to take these boys are so tired now, it's unbelievable.
This is really, Phil, at this point, just a question of survival. You get a chance there to see how steep this climb is. He's looking, he's tilting his head to one side as if to look around the corner and see where is the summit of this climb. Please let it finish, and please let the 20-minute or so descent down to the finish line come to me very quickly indeed.
He turned professional last year for Barlow World. He's never won a race as a pro, but he's offered an awful lot. He finished second in the Tour of Japan. That more or less got him his pro contract in 2006. He's been well up in the national championships as a youngster, but he's over the top now, and he's heading towards the valley below, and it is a long way to the valley below. We really are on top of the world here. This is the highest through road in Europe.
2,800 metres, 9,300 feet. Hincapie is the next rider to go around the corner there. Hincapie knows extremely well how to go downhill fast, and he will be dreaming about making the contact on the descent if he can. Here's the yellow jersey group, and in fact the yellow jersey group are eating their way up to the group behind. Jens Voigt has been dropped by that group.
Yes, they're starting to pick the way through riders who are coming back now. Voigt might get back on the descent, though. This is Andy Schleck back in the driving seat. The maillot jaune just behind, that's his brother Frank. Cadel Evans over to the left, never looked in trouble. Neither is Bernard Cole. These guys are so equal in ability now. It is going to be down to the best team wins the Tour. That's what it looks like just now.
Well, it certainly does. Here is Kim
Valverde's
Kirken.
cracking.
Well, he's not cracked by very much, Phil, because the finish at the top of the climb is not too far around the corner. Kim Kirken is starting to crack as well, but I think Valverde's got the ability to get himself back into this race on the descent. Cole now moving up there. It's not too much of a worry for him. The points that are left available at the top of the climb here, Phil, because there are certainly not very many left.
They're getting better, though. That was another rider, Schmidt, who's come back from the lead group. Here is Valverde here. The last few desperate moments here. He doesn't want to lose too much. He will catch it back on the descent. Hello's behind the motorbike. I doubt it's helping very much right now. Everybody's 110% committed. This is Andy Schleck. It is so steep. This is the 8% bit now as they lead up to the finish. They won't fight Cole for the points. Cadel Evans there grimacing, sitting on the wheel of Menchov. He's got to feel inside so happy. This has gone so well for him.
This has gone very well for Cadel Evans this afternoon, and Denny Menchov too. There they are over the summit of the climb. Andy Schleck taking a piece of newspaper on board there to put in front of his jersey, Phil. That is to stop the cold getting onto his chest on the descent, and Valverde's over at around about 15 seconds.
Well, this is every man for himself yet again now, but it's on the way downhill this time.
Well,
2 minutes and 4 seconds the gap.
I think Valverde did a pretty good ride there, Phil, because if you had asked me if Valverde was going to survive this big mountain stage this afternoon after his performance in the Pyrenees, I would have said a very definite no. But here he is, and he's about to join Kim Kirken. Kirken also surviving. Bernard Cole leading the descent now. This is a very difficult and dangerous descent, and you have to be very careful. And in fact, I think the yellow jersey needs to be very careful there, because Cadel Evans is in front of him.
Well, this is going to be, and Cadel Evans can descend a mountain, so this is going to be a very interesting race. Races are won and lost way down as well as the way up. It looks like they're coming back up to John Lee here. He's going to feel so happy tonight. He's conquered the highest mountain of this year's Tour de France, the youngest man in the race. He'll be on the front pages of the newspapers tomorrow for that.
Well, it looks like Arroyo was coming back up there as well for Case d'Epargne. Jaroslav Popovic has made the junction as well, so there's now 5 riders at the front of the race. So those 5 riders are going to be Cyril Dessel, Sandy Cassar, David Arroyo, Jaroslav Popovic and John-Lee Augustin. A little bit further back. Just having a look here. This looks as if it could be... Well, this is John-Lee Augustin, I think, who's gone off the edge of the road. And let's just have a look at this one more time. He's coming round that corner. He came into the corner much too fast, straight over the top of the climb, and he's onto the shale there. He's sliding down. They've stopped at the side of the road to see how he is. He seems to be okay, but he doesn't have a bike with him anymore. Well, that is very sad.
Paul, he's gone off on the steepest part of the drop here. His bike has gone way down there. But being from on top of the world, winning the climb, he must have just lost his eye on that corner and has gone. So he looks okay, amazingly, but he's getting back.
Well, he's got to get himself back into this bike race here this afternoon, Phil. That really was unbelievable. And what happened, I think, was he was going into the corner just a little bit too quickly, and he wasn't able to correct it, and there's nothing he could do that. The problem is the team cars are behind, and his spare bike is behind, and nobody's going to go down that mountain to go and get his bike.
He can't. It's gone miles. It just kept on going, and it's a very slippery slope that. It was covered in snow until 4 weeks ago, so there's nothing there but dust and rock.
Well, this is Kim Kirken and Alejandro Valverde trying to get themselves back into the yellow jersey group here this afternoon. Swapping turns on this part of the course now. We said this was a technical descent, a dangerous descent. You've got to keep your wits about you. You have to have the experience and know just exactly how to handle corners like this. You have to judge your entry speed to absolute perfection. If not, you're going to go off the edge of the road, as we've just seen John-Lee Augustin do.
I think what happened there was he'd been caught by the riders. He took his eye off the bend. He wasn't doing his own descent there. And when he realised it, he was already leaving the road. It was a very, very sad sight to see.
There he is at the side of the road, still waiting. He's going to wait and wait and wait. And that's the sad thing about having an incident like that, Phil, because the problem is the team cars are probably 2 minutes behind him.
Especially the Barlow World, because they've only got 4 riders left. They've only got 1 team car in the race, and they'll be way back. He could be there for ages. That's very, very sad for John Lee. But onward goes the race now. This is the super fast descent. Riders trying to repair the damage here. Kim Kirken trying to get back up, but chasing Valverde.
Valverde's going down this like a pinball. He's absolutely on the edge of his seat here, trying to get himself into contact with the yellow jersey group. They are going down this mountain at approximately 90 kilometers an hour.
Well, if he gets up, of course, and catches the leaders, Valverde would be the obvious to win.
Yeah, but he's still got a big gap to bridge there as he goes around that corner. We're looking at 1 minute and 38 seconds is the difference between the front part of the race, which is now down to just 4 riders: Popovic, Arroyo, Dessel and Cassar. And they are being chased a little bit further back by Portal, Hincapie, Sitsu and Tadek Valjavec. Kirken having a little bit of a problem with the descent here, going around these corners. He keeps backing off and losing 10 or 15 seconds. He's losing an awful lot of energy to keep himself in contact. Now there's a problem there with a rider from Crédit Agricole. And this looks to me as if, in fact, this is Rémy Porriot. He was in that leading group of riders halfway across the gap. Now he too has been caught and dropped on the descent. 4 leaders remain, and not too far back, I think, Phil, at around about 15 seconds is a group of 4 riders containing Portal, Hincapie, Sitsov and Tadek Valjavec.
Well, it is an amazing stage of the Tour de France today. First of all, we get the youngest rider in the race go over the top first, then we get the youngest rider in the race go off the side first. And as far as we know, he's still waiting at the roadside for a new bike. Nobody can go and get the old one back, as these riders continue to race down towards the finish. 1 minute 42 on the yellow jersey.
That is such bad luck, I have to say, Phil, for John-Lee Augustin. Here is the yellow jersey just sitting on the back of the group, and the man leading the descent down there is Cadel Evans. And just around the corner you can see that somebody is taking some serious risks.
Well, a front group, you know, Paul, it could turn out to be a perfect day for Cadel Evans' team, because Popovic is still there. He went over the top of the col in 4th place. We've seen him win a stage of the Tour de France in the past in Carcassonne. Not quite as hilly as it is today.
Well, there are the four leaders. They've got around 15 to 20 seconds advantage. Popovic just sitting at the back of the group. In this group as well is the rider from Cresting. He's a little further forward there, and that's David Arroyo. White jersey is Sandy Cassar, the Frenchman. 161 is his number. And we're just going to have a look at this again. He's just gone straight on in the corner, Phil. He locks it up, and he isn't able at all to control that bike. And he's he's a very lucky bike rider.
Yeah, he is, and it could have been anywhere. It could have been straight down to the valley, but this was only a slope. But he must be painful. He went right down on his chest, and it's full of rocks there. But let's get back to the leaders here. Popovic is the rider just at the back of the race at the moment. David Arroyo is up at the front to Cyril Dessel. Popovic will not overwork in this group because he's still waiting to find out how Cadel Evans, his team leader, is going. He's in the group behind with the yellow jersey. I would suggest it's going very well right now. Popovic, looking at the four riders here, is an absolute candidate for victory if they go down to the finish together.
Yeah, Popovic would be the most experienced man in that group. He's won a stage in the Tour de France before, but chasing it around about 15 seconds is a group containing Hincapie and Sitsov. And there's a massive chase going down this mountain with all kinds of risks being taken. This now is Sammy Sanchez, and he's gone off the front of the group, and he's got absolutely nothing to lose in a situation like this, but he's looking for 1 minute and 43 seconds. Looks like Evans on the front of that group. A little bit further back there, you can looking over his shoulder. Andy Schleck is just checking out where his brother is, seeing what kind of position he's in. Does he want him to chase or not? There's 15 kilometers to go for the leaders. This is Kim Kirken. He's backing off a fraction there now. It looks as if there's a rider there from Rabobank. I'm just trying to see who that rider is from Rabobank. I think it may well be a rider who was dropped a little earlier. And looking at the position there, it could very well be that this is Denny Menchov. So there's Sammy Sanchez. He's trying to ride across a gap of 1 minute and 43 seconds. The race situation at the moment is as a four-man leading group, chased by a four-man leading group, and then Stefan Schumacher somewhere in the middle on his own, and he's now being chased by Sammy Sanchez. There's Sanchez. He's just about. This is Denny Menchov. And in fact, Denny Menchov, in fact, has gone off the back of the group, the yellow jersey group now. I'm surprised at that. And it's the first time we've seen any crack in the armor of the big man from Russia. But he's riding himself back into this race. Lost a little bit of time on the corners, but he'll take all kind of risks to get around here. He's lost himself currently about 10 seconds, but I think he'll make it back.
1 minute 41 is the spread, Paul. Yellow jersey to the front. I can't see them bridging that gap over the terrain that's left.
Yeah, but the drama at the back a little bit, Phil, is the fact that Denny Menchov has come off the yellow jersey group and he's lost himself 10 or 15 seconds, and he doesn't actually look very comfortable.
He doesn't
on the
like
descent.
descending, does he?
No, he doesn't. I always thought he was a pretty good man at going downhill, but this is the leading group of four. Popovic just sitting at the back of the group there for Silence Lotto, the team of Cadel Evans, waiting to see what's going to happen if he is required to look after his teammate if they ever make the contact. I reckon they will survive, but Sammy Sanchez now is taking all kinds of risks to ride away from the yellow jersey group, and they're not going to take the risks, I don't think, Phil, to chase him down.
No, they won't. Absolutely not. Why should they? There is the yellow jersey, 12.9 kilometers to go. He's never had to do any pedaling in anger today. He's let his team do all the work. This is Kim Kirken trying to get back up into the action here, but they're going so far. You can see them on the left there. You'll see them on the hairpin bend. Right in the front is Valverde. He's just about holding him in sight, Kim Kirken. So he's going down very, very well here.
There, in fact, is Denny Menchov, who's in front of Kim Kirken. He's the rider from Rabobank, just on the front, going around the corner. And as you can see, Phil, he is trying to take a lot of risks to get himself back into the yellow jersey. He is really struggling with this descent as we go back to the four leaders.
The four leaders, lest you forget, there they are, Jaroslav Popovic, David Arroyo, Cyril Dessel, Sandy Cassar. They could be sharing out a most spectacular stage of the Tour de France today, and it might go the way of Cadel Evans if his teammate Popovic wins it downtown in Jausiers. 12 kilometers to go, virtually all downhill. They've got to close time gaps now because the finish will come too quickly.
The finish will come approximately at speeds like this. The finish will come in around about 12 minutes. This is Popovic just on the back of the group, but on the front of the yellow jersey group, it's Cadel Evans is making the majority, Phil, of the pace-making. And the reason for him doing that is because there's one man he's scared of in this bike race, and his name is Denny Menchov. He sees Denny Menchov as the big danger. 10 or 15 seconds grab today could be 10 or 15 seconds, which is very important in the individual time trial.
At 11.5 kilometers to go, we've witnessed a sensational crash to the man that went over the top first, John Lee Augustin. As far as we know, he's still standing at the roadside. His bike has gone into the valley, and he's waiting for somebody to give him a new one to finish the day on the Tour de France. These are the leading four riders. The yellow jersey group is strengthening again here, just going down towards the finish to live to fight another day. The leaders are under the 10 kilometers to go banner, which would account for the slight discrepancy in the mileage today, I think.
Well, a quick crackle on race radio says that Denny Menchov is currently 8 seconds behind the group of the yellow jersey, which is being led on the descent by Cadel Evans. Now, we all know Cadel Evans' ability to go downhill fast. After all, he was the World Cup winner in the mountain bike a number of years ago before he decided to dedicate himself to the road side of the sport.
He can descend, he's at home in the mountains now, and this any second gain now, there is Sammy Sanchez there, but any seconds gained here might decide the Tour de France in the other's favour. Schleck is down in that group. This looks to me as though it is Valverde coming around. That is Menchov.
Yeah.
Looked like a yellow jersey there. Well, he's getting back.
He's getting back, but he's still at 8 seconds. Kim Kirken is having a hard time staying on his back wheel to stay in contact with him there as well, and he's taking all kinds of risks around these corners. That is the group of the yellow jersey. Cadel Evans, Andy Schleck, Carlos Sastre, they are all there, and they are all trying to prevent Denny Menchov making the junction on the descent. But Menchov must not give up. He's got the power to get himself back into this group, but it's the first time, Phil, we've seen any weakness in the big Russian.
Well, it's not so much a weakness as perhaps a nervous situation. He's not happy with the way the road is winding down to the finish here, and it's costing him. It's not a question of not having the strength, but they found a weakness in him in as much that he can't go downhill. 9.5 kilometers left to go. The four leaders well spread out as well. Look at this. Watch out for Sandy Cassar. We saw him win last year. Remember, he hit a dog. He was the craftiest man in the run into the finish. He made his move when they were all looking the other way, and he won the stage.
He's a very clever bike rider, that's for sure. This is the group now of the yellow jersey. They are at 1 minute and 50 seconds from the leaders. And in the middle, you've still got a group of 3 riders containing Nicolas Portal of Case d'Epargne, Hincapie of Team Columbia, and of course in there as well his teammate Konstantin Sivstov.
This is Samuel Sanchez trying to rejoin the leaders. He's very, very close to doing so. The next man in our picture should be the descending Denny Menchov. He must be in that group back there. They are slowly trying to haul it back together again. Sadly, Christian van der Velde is the one we know nothing about. He was dropped on the way up the climb, and he is a very good descender. So he may have to work his heart out to get back into this race now.
Sanchez, look at the way he's using the apex of the corner. He's using 100% of the width of the road there to make sure he doesn't lose any impetus or momentum around these corners. This is now once again the leading group. Cassar sitting on the back. He's quite happy to try and figure out how he's going to outfox the men in this group. Popovic leading him around that corner there, followed again by Cyril Dessel. Dessel is having a fantastic season. He's a rider who, having worn the yellow jersey in the Tour a couple of years ago, Phil, had some illness, had some kind of sickness, which it took him around about 1.5 years to get over. But this year, he's really come back to the top of his game.
Well, Popovic, who seems to be doing a lot of work here, now he's forced the other, Dessel, in fact, to go through and do a little bit of work. He's also been riding pretty strongly in the work rates. But Popovic might well be the man to take it out in the sprint. Cassar will try to go on his own.
This is the group of Hincapie just coming back now as well, I think, and Hincapie looking to try and get himself back into the race.
Well, they are riding in a group of 3. Nicolas Portal is the rider in front of him. Konstantin Sivstov is the Columbia rider in there with George. So they've got a 1-2 possibility here. There's all the team cars and motorbikes behind. As we pull back, we might see how they're getting on, but at the moment there's no time checks. Our computer has just gone up in smoke.
Well, another rider there should be Tadej Valjavec as well, the rider from AG2R. There is no official time gap given between that group of 4 and the group of 3, but I would estimate, Phil, it will be hovering at around about the 30-second mark.
Well, our open countryside as we get lower and lower, only 6.5 kilometres from the finish now as we continue to descend all the way down. Those are the 4 men who could decide that what has been a terrific day of racing. Sandy Cassar has done nothing except sit at the back of these 4, so he's planning a move. It's a very narrow finish. They've got to read it right, otherwise they'll overshoot it.
Well, there's confirmation. It's 30 seconds back to a 3-man group containing George Hincapie. 6 kilometres left to go to the finish. And I'll tell you what, if you're in a situation like this right now, you've got to hope that you'd read the race Bible properly last night, because it's quite a tricky finish into the finishing line here. Not one I think the organisers expected was going to be sorted out by a sprint. You come over a very nasty bridge, and then it's a right-hand bend, and then almost immediately there's the finish in front of you.
Yeah. The sad thing is that in that 4-man leading group we would have had, in fact, John Lee Augustin from South Africa if he hadn't have gone straight on a right-hand bend and left the road completely. It'll take an awful big effort to bring his bike back, but at least he only went a short distance.
There's Alejandro Valverde just riding in front of the yellow jersey. 5 kilometres to go to the finish.
And just look at this, Sandy Cassar lying off the back here. I'm not sure he's too happy here at all. 4.9 kilometres, we've just passed under 5 kilometres to go. These are the 4 leading riders: Popovic, Arroyo, Dessel and Cassar. Cassar's the rider at the back. He's still not happy with this descent, and he lays off so he can see every corner.
Well, he wants, I think, to pick his own line around these corners. There in front you've got Tadej Valjavec, who's chasing like a madman to get himself back into the race. With the man in blue there is George Hincapie. Just sitting on the back of the group is David Arroyo. And they're still looking for 30 seconds. It's going to be very difficult, Phil, on a downhill section of this course to actually get yourself back into contact. That's Portal, by the way. Arroyo's in the leading group of 4.
That's right, and they're still waiting for news as to know if John Lee Augustin has started riding his bike again. I would hope so by now, but we're now looking to see who's going to win the stage here. 3.9 kilometres to go as these riders continue to descend towards the finish. Now, one of these 4 surely will win. Looking at the 4 leading riders, just gone in 4 kilometres from the finish. I can't see them being caught now, Paul.
Well, they shouldn't. They've got 30 seconds over a 3-man chase group, Portal, Hincapie and Valjavec, and it's a long way back to the yellow jersey group, around about 1 minute and 45 seconds. The question is, have they studied the race handbook this morning? Because you might as well lead over the last kilometre, because I reckon the first man around the corner is going to get himself the stage victory.
But
Cassar is struggling.
Yeah, he doesn't like going down at all, and this could cost him the race, this, because we race right into the finish downhill.
Well, it's straight downhill into the outskirts of town here, and then straight across the river and a right-hand bend. 3 kilometres to go. Sandy Cassar must be dreaming of the victory that he got in the Tour de France last year and wondering, he chased a victory in the Tour de France for many, many years, and here he's facing up to the possibility of a second one.
Well, just look at the way these riders are lining up for the bend here. Well, it's like watching a motor race here as they brake hard and then they try to go up on the inside of one another. 2.7 kilometres to go. There's the spread for you. 1 minute 42 across the board.
Well, I tell you what, these riders also know, Phil, that if they mess about in a situation like this and start to play the cat-and-mouse tactics and slow down, then George Hincapie's group will come back into contact, and they wouldn't want that, because Hincapie would then be the strongest sprinter in the front of the race. Currently, I would have to say my money would go to Jaroslav Popovic, but you can never discount the man sitting on the back, and although he looks like he's been struggling, I'm absolutely certain that Sandy Cassar is itching to win this bike race this afternoon.
He is, and that's why he's trying to hang on, and he might change his attitude if he can just get to see the finishing line here. But the way they are going around, another tight bend. Cassar taking a little bit closer order there as he tries to hold on to the whip end. Cyril Dessel is the worker at the front. Another one is a French sandwich at the moment, and they've got the other riders in between, the rider from Ukraine and the rider from Spain.
Yeah, David Arroyo, this is a little bit further
Here
back
comes
now.
George picking up Samuel Sanchez, isn't it? Or is it Kirkin?
This is Sammy Sanchez, and I would expect that to be Kirkin. Or maybe it's, in fact, Sivsov who's been picked up by Sammy Sanchez, because Sivsov was in the group with Hincapie, and he got dropped.
Well, they're still well spread out. Sylvester Schmidt here also trying to put matters to rights without his team leader now. Damiano Koenigan and make a tight bend here.
Well, it's still Denny Menchov and Kim Kirkenfeld trying to keep themselves in contact with the yellow jersey group, so they're losing a little bit of time here this afternoon. And strangely enough, as Cadel Evans almost predicted it, on the descent, which is becoming much more tactical than the uphill part of the course.
There might be some losses amongst the leaders, Christian van der Velde and Menchov. I haven't seen Sastre either. But as we're starting to move at 1.3, that's opened it up with the leaders here now. And that is Popovic, who's gone early. And Cassar was straight onto him here. And that one's not going to work. Popovic, I think, at 1 kilometre to go, is easing up again to tempt somebody else in front. It was a good move, it didn't work.
It was a good move, but Sandy Cassar, as we'd said, was very observant. He was waiting for that move at 1.5 kilometres to go, and now he's in first position. It's not the best position to be, I don't think, because I'll tell you what, it's a very nasty right-hander. Here's the move coming from David Arroyo on the left.
Well, that would be a surprise, but he's gone for the inside. Dessel is now going after him. Popovic still lively at the back, holding on, thinking Cassar will close the gap for him, and Cassar takes it up. Arroyo has made a real run for the finish here, but Cyril Dessel, and this is the line up toward the breaking horse. Cyril Dessel has got the lead, and this could be a victory for France, and it wasn't to be expected today. But Cyril Dessel breaks hard, sees the finish now as he goes into the straight, and now he's got a kick out of this. There's still a chance for Popovic. No, Cyril Dessel has run away with this, and he deserves it. That is a huge result for him. He's not there yet. Oh, yes, he is. He's crossed the line. Do you know what? I didn't see the line. There was so much around that bottom bend. Cyril Dessel carried on sprinting like it wasn't over.
Well, it was a very tricky finish on the run in there. Here's George Hincapie, Phil, lining himself up for 5th place. Oh, how much he wished he'd stayed in contact over the top of that climb, because that could have been a victory for Big George. And here he looks, lines up for 5th place.
Yes,
ahead
he knows
of Portal and Tadej Valjevic.
He knows it. He's a rise shaken the head there by George Hincapie as we swing here to the melee around a French winner on the toughest day of the Tour de France. They will not believe this. Cyril Dessel doing well. And there's the hero of the day, Stefan Schumacher. Well, at least he'll be voted the day's most aggressive rider. There can't be anybody in the hat for that.
Well, it's good to see that he managed to survive, because bear in mind there has been a massive battle behind as Schumacher lines himself up now to get himself across the line. And I think that will be 8th place for him.
8th or 9th, yes, but either way, the hero of the day, and only losing at just on a minute. Now the battle of all the men that matter here. And this is another lead out. It looks like Bernard Cole, the 2nd overall, is going to hang on to the lead out. He's not going to lose any seconds. Neither is Cadel Evans, who's right at the back. You've got to finish alongside each other, so there's no time difference. So they're all going to do that. There will be some of the riders lose a little bit of time today, but Andy Schleck finishes it off there with Cole, Evans, Schleck, the other Schleck, Frank, and Sastre was there as well. Now my watch is running, Paul, and to see how much time this man has lost.
Well, I'm so surprised in Denny Menchov here this afternoon, because he was dropped on the descent of the Col de la Bonette Restefort, and now he's fighting to keep himself in the bike race here this afternoon. He's got Kim Kirkham there for company, and he's lost himself already, Phil, 10 or 15 seconds.
No, more than that, Paul. Half a minute has gone by, and that is a huge time loss for this man as he races up to the line. 33 seconds I make it on my watch since Cole crossed the